Tony and I talked about that the other day. He's like, I get like 3 or 4 episodes at a time.
You almost have to like force it to like refresh it. Follow the link out of the Instagram feed.
The Shane Gillis one at the very beginning, they're talking. It's pretty hilarious.
What do you know about that?
What is that?
Like beer salt?
Huh. That's cool.
You'd know about it if you're drinking.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna save it for when you come.
When you
come back to the dark side. We got all
I actually saw a drinking like technique for extracting oils out of like the peels of lemons and limes and stuff like that.
Stop.
So good.
Stop. What are you talking about? What about just drinking to get drunk?
I'm just talking about quality, like margaritas and shit.
Dude, the margaritas they slap down at Casa Tequila.
Did you go tonight?
That place is super good. Have you been there yet?
Yeah, a couple times.
Dude, the tacos are fantastic.
Oh, the steak. The steak is...
Can't be beat. Cannot be beat.
The steak is fire.
Dude,
need to walk in there.
The lemon lime salt with the basically margarita high noon.
Carlos come back down with you?
Yeah, he's down here. I snapped my fingers and pointed at the door, and he like hauled ass over here. He's like, "It's time to go. We got shit to do." He was in it. He's part of this. He's like, "I just sit under the table and fart. Nobody knows about it."
We about took Ollie in to get x-rayed the other day because he was all lethargic and acting weird. Well, on Saturday or Sunday, he threw up. Like, I smelled something. I'm like, Andrew, what is that smell? And I looked back at his cot when I couldn't figure out. Like, I thought it was me. Like, I'm smelling my clothes and everything. And I look back, and there's throw up all over his cot that he lays on and a big glob of something, right? And I'm like, I went and grabbed it. I took it out to the garbage. I thought it was like a rag of some kind, like a microfiber towel or something. Yeah. But I just pitched it. Then he like kind of started deteriorating and getting weak and wasn't doing well. And Angie's like, I think we need to take him in. And she called the vet, and the vet's like, well, what was it that he ate? Make sure, like, go look at it if you can get it still, if it's not thrown away, like, too far. So I went in the dumpster outside and picked it up, and come to find out it was a pair of Quinn's underwear. But,
dogs eat whatever, man. Dogs are like inside raccoons, man. They eat whatever.
So he was like, he'll be fine?
I think, because he's good now. I think what he just, because of that and whatever his stomach needed to do to, because he wasn't going to pass it or something, right? So he probably needed to get rid of it one way or another. So he was probably creating acid in his stomach to, like, force it out. He ended up, throwing it up. But
are you guys, like, real diligent on, like, what kind of snacks you give him? Like, do you give him rawhide bones?
He doesn't have anything. Like, no people food. Like,
neither does
like
he.
Nothing.
I mean, he might.
You guys, the two dogs are like homeschooled students, man.
They are.
Junk food.
He doesn't get anything, and unless it like falls on the floor and he scrapes it up.
Tough him up.
My grandparents always had dogs that lived forever, and like they fed them like when you would get done at the table for like dinner,
throw it down.
Like they just set the plates down and these plates would be lit clean.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
And they live forever.
I always wondered why they didn't have a dishwasher.
Well, the thing is, it's more of a like. Those dogs never begged because they knew they were getting it.
Sure.
So you got to be all or none. Like you give it to them all the time and they expect it, then they won't beg because they know they're getting it.
Yeah.
But if you're like sometimes, then they're always on you begging and shit.
Exactly. So. Yeah, he's on the none path.
I say you should give it all to him.
So
what's this thing? It's like a J-bone holder.
So we're back with audio.
Let's do a little recap here.
With audio.
Should we start with why there wasn't a podcast last week, or should we start with Todd's trip, which we need to do all over again? Let's start with how we did not have an audio and podcast, because I'm going to hold myself responsible for that, because I'm the one over here pressing the button that says record, not record. And in oversight, in haste, if you will, with the excitement of having a guest on our podcast, maybe that was part of it. Maybe part of because of, as usual, was probably 3 or 4 drinks deep before we started.
That's what I would say.
We didn't run a pre-podcast sound check and check to make sure everything was running smooth. Apparently, from what I can surmise, okay, let me just give everyone a brief breakdown here on how we use a software called OBS, right? Open Broadcast System. It's open to everyone to use. It's public domain software. I would say I would be willing to bet at least 60% of most podcasts are ran off of OBS. Right? It's a media capturing software that you, for every input you bring in your computer, you designate some sort of a channel to, and then it collects all that data, right? So the way that we have our podcast set up is we have cameras. Each one of those has their own dedicated channel. One says Todd, one says Nick, one says video capture device, because apparently we just didn't name it Tony. And then there's an audio input capture channel. For some reason, the audio input capture channel didn't capture. So we have a 100% visual podcast with zero audio. That may be somehow worked into the fold in a future release.
Coming to a social media post near you could be subtitled like a Chinese movie.
That'd be hilarious.
Podcast.
We're working through
stuff.
We're working through how we're going to harvest that content.
Yeah, we'll use it.
Long story short, you can hate me all you want. I'm accepting full responsibility because I'm the one who looks at how the audio mixer comes in. So ultimately, that ends with me.
I think
So
the only thing that's sad about the situation was just that Sam was here, right?
Yeah.
And who knows when that'll happen again, but
I mean, we can continue to talk about it, and I can feel bad, or we can move
no.
on.
Listen, this is if you let me finish.
Sam's
hey,
the one
I just
that
don't want to
feels
talk about
bad.
it
listen,
anymore.
hey, no, you spoke your part. I'm just saying that it was perfectly fine because it was a blast anyway.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
we had a good time.
like the 3.5 people who watch are the only people who are really missing out. We were here and enjoyed it.
And Sam enjoyed it too. He just doesn't get to hear himself on the podcast.
Well, he doesn't listen anyway, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
we
kidding.
did. We did find that out, didn't we?
it's tough. It's
Do we
tough.
know 100% we're recording now though?
Yeah, we already did the sound check this time.
But then you didn't.
I'm watching the levels come up for the audio input capture.
Yeah.
We're good now.
Yeah.
We got rid of the reverb that we originally had because something changed. We fixed it. It's back to normal. We should be all good now.
So let me ask you this. You know, we take potty breaks now and then.
Yeah.
You know, Rogan does the same thing. He just like hit pause and doesn't miss a beat. Can we do that on this or no?
Yeah.
Yes, we can pause.
Beautiful.
Okay.
We
And
don't-
if
Not
we'd
that
like
we
to do
need
that,
to. If one person goes, then the other two keep talking.
if
But if it's like
everyone's-
more than one, then it's kind of like, all right.
Sure.
We
Well,
should probably
if
hit
it's like,
pause.
hey, we all need to take a leak real quick, we can just hit pause, for sure.
Love it.
That makes sense.
Cool.
So, let's keep this thing moving. How was the trip?
Well, I recapped it last week.
It was so long ago.
Okay, we can move on then if you
didn't-
don't want to.
No, I'm
We need
joking.
to
I'm
stop talking
joking.
about this because I hate myself about not recording it. And
I-
every time we talk about how we missed something, I feel that much more bad about
Here's
it.
the deal. It's
Just
not
so
your
you guys
fault.
know.
It's
Hey,
not your fault.
I don't
It's
care.
not your
I'm
fault.
claiming
Part of
responsibility
me
for it.
isn't mad
All right,
that it
so-
got delayed though, or not working properly because I maybe fat shamed some people.
Perfect. Great time to move on. How was
We're
the trip?
bringing that topic back up. By
No
the
way.
way, yes, we are. Yes, we are. Just like I'm gonna recap my trip. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I took my son to California. He turned 16 in February, end of February. He's a basketball player. His favorite player is Steph Curry. I surprised him with a trip out to the Bay Area to watch a game. We stayed with my cousin Chris Henniger and his wife Kayla and his two beautiful girls. They were kind enough to host us. Was awesome. And then we went to the game a couple Mondays ago and watched the Suns and the Warriors. It was awesome. Klay Thompson had 33 points in the first half, it's always cool to see those things live. You see them, you see the stat line, you're like, oh, okay, cool. But when you see it, you're like, holy crap. Like, dude was on fire.
How many points does Charles Barkley have?
Chuck.
He don't play anymore?
No, Chuck's not there anymore. No, Chuck's not there. But anyway, good game. The Warriors won, and then we drove down through California. Just had some good one-on-one time. Went to a suburb of LA in Upland, where my buddy Joel and his wife Amanda and 3 kids live. They hosted us there. And then we, on Wednesday night, went into LA to Crypto and watched the Clippers host the Warriors. So Brady got to see 2 Warriors games. That game, the Warriors lost. Another really good game, but Steph Curry, his favorite player, had 50.
Wow.
Again,
Incredible.
To see a performance like that at that level of play was amazing. But the trip for him and I was just galvanizing. Not
That's
that we
dope.
don't have a great relationship, but it was cool.
No, Brady's one of those
It
kids
was
that
cool.
always plays it so cool too. Did he like kind of geek out a little bit?
Oh, he was loving it.
That's awesome.
He had a great time. Like
That's
there were
awesome.
times where I'm like, "Hey, you want to go get something to eat, or you want to do this?" He's like, "No, I just want to sit here. I want to watch this. I want to see this. I want to see
That's
this."
so cool.
Like he would sit in the stands, or we got there early for shoot arounds, and he's just like we get there, we see our seat, and I'm watching guys shoot around. And he's like, "I'm gonna watch them." I'm like, "All right, you want some?" And then I just go up, get our snacks or whatever.
That's so cool.
He's just watching.
It's so cool to see you like enjoy some of those fruits of that hard work. You know, I mean, all three of us kind of take raising our kids as like, oh, this is a passion of ours. We love doing it.
Yeah.
But to have those retrospective moments of like,
yeah, it's cool.
Todd's time is running out.
we're doing all right.
I'm telling you.
16 is old, man.
Yeah,
It's
he's
like,
close.
Right.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
not a kid, you know. He's driving. It's crazy to think, but you know, in a couple of years, we're almost to the point where we're really done raising him. You know, he's going to be making his own decisions. He's just going to need maybe a little guidance here and there. But when they're little, when they're younger, like your guys' kids are younger, they need all sorts of guidance and stuff. I mean, they're making little decisions, but you know, he's working. He's, you know, he's thinking
Yeah.
about his future. Like he's growing up. It's crazy.
It's like you've taken the training wheels off, but you're still watching them ride around the bike. In
Yeah,
the
I mean, I'm
driveway.
still his dad, but you know,
Sound like Nick and I are over here still holding on to the back of the seat, make sure they don't tip over.
yeah,
You're like, hey,
yeah,
cut some circles in the driveway.
yeah. Now I'm like, hey, go pick up your sister from practice. more like Lisa saying that.
So dope.
So it was a great trip. I appreciate you asking.
We're both proud of you, dude. I
Again.
mean, to deliver a human being into that phase of their life is incredible.
It's a bit scary when they start driving. But
I wish I
he's-
had a
but-
parent that,
But he's a good driver. He's,
took me on a trip like that.
Well, here's
No,
so let me
we just didn't do vacations.
do a little side shoot here for a minute. So my family, there's times where I feel like my mom has, she feels like there's shortcomings between her and her mom. And I had a discussion with them like, this is your chance. You know, when it comes to my daughter, it's your chance to right all those wrongs. And I applied that to myself of, okay, what were all the things that I felt my parents maybe came up a little bit short on? Now, granted, we don't know our parents of where they were when they were our age, when they were raising us. We
Yeah.
can make guesses. We can listen to the stories that tell us, but I feel like you're missing an opportunity if you don't look at your kids that way. Like, okay, I'm gonna take what I remember from my childhood. I'm gonna tweak a couple things. I'm gonna do it my style, and maybe shore up some of the things that maybe you felt like you were off on. Now that could be totally flipped over when your kids have kids, and they'd be like, you know, I didn't like how my parent did this. I'm gonna change that. But you know, if you come to a spot where you look at your parents and you understand, like, wait a minute, my parents were this age, and I remember when I was a kid and my parents were my age. How do I feel? You know what I mean? Kind of transpose that onto where you're at. I think there's like a whole lot of power there that you can harvest of like, okay, we're going to tweak a couple things. You look at yourself and you're like, I don't like how this is about me. Maybe it has something to do with how my parents raised me. Maybe if I change that, you know, a little top-down approach, maybe we can give the next generation a little leg up.
I think it can happen, but I think there's also, you know, there's that, I don't know, that parable of, you know, the person who didn't have anything, then the next generation gives a little more, and the next generation's not doing much, and that's like, oh,
How,
Sure.
and it's like 4 generations, then it flips to back to like great grandfather, you know, like
Well, that's, I mean,
hardworking and have to totally flip it because you eventually end up with a spoiled. little
that's what I always heard was like
entitled
every
person.
third generation of a family-owned business typically fails because the third generation doesn't remember. They didn't see firsthand what that first generation had to do to build it, right? So the second generation did. They carried it on.
probably
By the
easier to
time
give up.
By the time you get to that third generation, they're like, well,
What was
I
always
wasn't-
there, right?
I wasn't there in the trenches with,
Hmm.
you know, with grandpa like you were, Dad, to understand, man, it takes a ton of work to make some
A
stuff.
lot of times they probably weigh their options and they're like, it's just as easy to like sell out at that point, right? And split it up between siblings or something like that.
Sure.
you
Or
know?
maybe they've even like lost interest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There isn't that drive. They're like, well, now we have some financial backing. You know, maybe we can explore some other stuff. And that sometimes that works too. But, you know, if you're trying to, you know, carry that torch past like 3 generations, I can only imagine it'd be super, super difficult to try to coordinate and kind of have those traditions, continue down the line. But
for sure.
There's
How
some
old were
there's
your
some-
guys' parents when you guys were born?
great question.
The reason,
see.
I guess, if you're thinking about it, the reason I ask is because like I'm like I'm older now than my mom was when I graduated high school. So that's an interesting thing of like think about the raising time frame, right? Like my kids are 5th and 3rd grade, right? And I'm 41. When I graduated high school, my mom was 40.
So my dad would have been 28.
Yeah,
when was born.
I think that's me too.
So I was 30 when Ava was born. So
20.
yeah, I'm 2 years older than her.
Yeah.
My dad was
Than
20.
my dad was.
My dad was 27.
Was he?
I was the same 30 when Quinn was born.
Can you
but-
imagine? I mean, okay, like we all,
I was 25 when Brady was born.
to some degree, we look at our
26
we look
when
at our
Brady was
parents
born.
and
27.
like on a pedestal, a little bit idolized of they raised us, you know what I mean? But just think, they were dealing with the same headaches and the same worries and anxieties that we have, that when we've been rearing our children, they were dealing with that same stuff. And to me, it's always, I love looking at it through that perspective. Like, I look up to my dad to a lot of stuff. Same thing with my mom. I'm like, man, how did you guys do it? Well, honestly, they were humans too. They were making dumbass decisions just like I was, like I am at my age. They had their time when there was that.
I think the difference though nowadays, I mean, like, what did they call it? The term is like latchkey kids. Is that what they called it? Like, we're like, the difference between like my kids are now at an age where they can kind of do it, but like, I almost felt like I had free reign at like 6 or 7 years old to like do a lot of independent things, like on my bike and driving around, you know what I mean, and going around the neighborhood. And it wasn't even a neighborhood. I lived in a town, right? So like, there weren't neighborhoods like here where you have just like a subdivision.
Right.
It was one town of 2,000 people. So like, but to drive my bike to my grandma's or my cousins, it was like very young, like walking to school, to get on the bus, stuff like that. Like,
Sure.
that's like unheard of now. Like, you can't do it. I don't even know if your kids can walk to Madawan school. They have to get dropped off.
I find it super ironic because my mom gives me a hard time about Ava being home. Like, she gets off the bus by herself and there's a gap of anywhere from a half hour to an hour before I get home. And she gives me a hard time about it. She's like, you want me to be there? I'm like, no, you don't need to drive her. She'll be okay. There's a little bit of time for her to develop some independence. I'm like, wait a minute. I remember walking to the school bus at 6 a.m. and you guys were already gone to work. And it was like, you don't, like the pressure of not having the school call my mom or dad at work because I missed the bus or something.
Wait a second. Walking to school at 6 a.m.?
Down to the bus.
6 a.m.?
I would have to go to the...
It was always dark.
I
It was always dark. Autumn and I would always be walking on that bus.
6 a.m.?
Yeah.
That's early.
I'd always have to walk down to like the high school to catch the bus to go to the elementary because the high school was closer and they ran buses from there to the elementary school on the other side of town. But like, I'd just dip out and walk down there. Like, it was maybe a half mile. I don't know.
We had a bus stop in our subdivision.
Would always get woke
It
up.
wasn't like that.
And hey, get ready for school. I'm going to work. Don't miss that buzz. I don't want that phone call. Right? I was like, oh shit. I remember a couple times
surprised at 6 a.m. Like, my kids right now, they're in high school, so they leave early. They leave the house at 7 a.m.
Right. But riding a bus in Paw Paw, a little more rural, that bus route's a little bit longer than Madawan.
I don't know about that.
I would say so. But I remember, like, we were one of the first ones to get picked up, one of the last ones to get dropped off. Right?
Was it reversed in the afternoon then, though?
So you guys had the shaft.
Yeah, not great. Right, it wasn't fun. Yeah,
it was a full size bus though, right?
It was. But most
it wasn't
of the time,
a short bus.
Right, I started going to school at regular time about 3rd or 4th grade. And then they let me in with all the rest of the kids. Crazy. I was like, man, funny. You can stretch your legs out on this bus. I got to wear that helmet or a seatbelt. It was great.
I remember there was like one time when I was like out and probably getting dark out or something like that, and like I remember like my aunt like in a car like seeing me and just like screaming all upset and mad and stuff or whatever, and like they had been looking for me for a couple hours, you know what I mean? But do you know, like, you're carrying like a cell phone or anything back then, so like town's not big, but you start to maybe panic, like, did he get kidnapped or something, but like again, when you're out on a bike at 6-7 years old, you know what I mean, like somewhere around within half a mile of the house, like out on one of the streets.
Sure.
Whatever, you run into some kids, you play in their backyard, you move on to the next place. But
you're looking for half a sheet of plywood rolled up on a rock or something.
We did that all the time.
Right.
So
for sure.
behind where I grew up, there's a huge bird sanctuary. So it's like acres and acres and acres of woods, and we just go in there and run around all day long. But we'd also ride our bikes to Cask and Keg.
There we go.
And now there's it's kind of blown up now. But that was a couple mile ride just on a decently busy street. And there's a couple times we rode our Ryan Reynolds and I rode our bikes to Formula K.
Gotta get that from the
You don't even know about Formula K. Was
Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
He lived here? I thought he was Canadian.
Yeah. Same guy.
The one from Madeline is way more handsome. way better of a dude.
Yeah,
sure.
Better actor. All the things.
Funnier.
More American.
Hotter wife.
Well,
Fantastic.
I don't know about that. But
I do know Formula K though. It was here when we moved here.
Yeah, so we rode our bikes there.
R.I.P. Formula
And
K.
so get this, so you have to ride over the highway.
That bridge before the roundabouts.
Right.
Which is
So
probably
when we instead of riding our bikes over, we walked our bikes over the bridge just because we thought it was, we were young. We were like, this is
Smart.
probably more safe.
Being responsible.
So on the way back, we were doing that, and his grandma, who lived in Madawan, because his dad is from Madawan, blah blah blah, she passes us. She honks at us, and then she pulls over, and she's this worrywart like grandma. She gets out like she's hysterical. She's like, "Oh my gosh! What are you guys doing? You guys are gonna die! You get in my car right now! We had to like get underneath the bikes in the car. We're like, okay, grandma, we're getting in there. Stuffed us in there. She brought us home. She's like, she gets home. She's like, she tells her son, Ryan's dad. She's like, I can't believe you would let those bikes. She's giving it to him. It's hilarious, and he's like, what the heck, man? Like, wasn't that long ago we were riding horses through that over the highway? It was crazy. But that's what you're talking about. Small town. We didn't wear helmets. My parents were like, "Yeah, go ahead, just watch out for cars."
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents was like, "How much that helmet cost?" Like, hey, you don't need one. You're all right. That's like 2 trips to the hospital. You'd be all right.
Yeah.
It's crazy though. I can't let the kids go out like on the roads because they can stay in our neighborhood, but the roads don't have enough space on the sides for people to barely even walk.
Sure.
So
Plus, there's a whole bunch of blind corners.
Guess what?
Around you.
Neither did these. They didn't widen them since.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
They were
though.
smaller.
I think maybe there might be a little more traffic around Matawan though, from when you were like a young kid.
I'd say
probably.
1,000,000,000% more traffic.
Yeah,
Casa Tequila's driving most of that traffic.
Yeah, that's funny though.
So,
we did that.
Side note, Nick, did you watch Ex Machina?
No, because you guys didn't call me. That was messed up that you ended up watching it without me.
I only watched.
Todd told me you guys.
He didn't watch any of it.
Todd told me you guys watching. I'm like,
Passed off.
that's messed up.
We should turn it on.
I ended up watching like some other sci-fi because you had me so geeked up about that. I had to find something called The Beyond, which was fine.
What movie was
a
it
great
called?
movie, Joe. Ex
Machina.
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina.
Let me holler at some of that Machina.
Anyways, I'll try to.
A lot of Machina.
I need some of that machine Machina.
I'll see if Angie will let me get a subscription to HBO Max for a week.
You don't need that. You just need some. You just need my credentials.
I know, but
I can't say that publicly, but you just need my login information. You use my account.
Nobody else has his account but him.
No one. Just me.
Just him.
Keep a heavy hand on it.
But I do want to watch it.
It's
crazy.
good.
We could have been talking about it right
man.
now.
It's good.
Well, we got more content for next week. But what I would like, there's a couple things I'd like to talk about.
Not about that.
One is about GPT-4. Where are we with that one?
Do you have to pay for that?
Yes.
The next one is what's going on with East Palestine, Ohio.
That's still happening?
And then the last one is what our military is doing right now, which is getting totally underreported. Where you guys want to start?
Hold on.
And I missed all.
Hold
Palestine, I thought was done, and I thought
don't know anything about that one.
I don't know anything about our military.
Don't know anything about the military. I also want to make sure we hit on the topic of gluttony.
Oh God, I need to form a better opinion on that. I don't know. It was like maybe Tony drank too much or whatever and wasn't getting me. I don't know. But Sam understood what I was saying.
I did too.
I don't like these dots that you're connecting, but I'll go with it.
I thought it was great.
I agree. I think it's a solid point, but yeah.
This was a topic
I
in
wanna
our
fine-tune.
silent podcast, so you guys
part
can
of
try
that's-
to read
I
Nick's
do
lips.
remember part of I asked, was Jesus for everyone? I was like, yep. And I said, then deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't know how that
I think
related
you
to anything we
start-
were talking about.
Start with that East Palestine because I think it fell off to me.
Sure, fair
Yeah.
enough. So there's been, as with any of these stories, like as more time goes on, there's more time to analyze and look at stuff, and for people to accrue information and form opinions and perspectives. Right? I mean, you're basically accruing retrospect and hindsight. Right? So you can start making these complex conclusions that you can connect dots that at the time, as more dots come up, you can start connecting and be like, okay, this makes sense. Well, the narrative came out of these 15-minute cities, right? I mean, that was a loose association at the beginning, but it's been gaining more and more steam that maybe the derailment was purposely done to help. So the 15-minute cities theory, I don't know all of it. I'm not real well versed in it, but from about half hour worth of research, it sounds like 15-minute cities is the idea that you're going to pull people back in from off the grid, right? People who think they can dissociate themselves with, a governmental hierarchy, you can draw them back in if you do something like, I don't know, poison any of these lightly gridded or off-grid areas. Lightly gridded areas, I would consider rural America. There's a lot of stuff where like these areas aren't in the spotlight. You can get away with a lot of stuff. You're talking about a municipality that almost from top to bottom, like that's a person's engagement with the government. It's on a municipal level. It's not on like a, left and right really doesn't. I mean, it's just like white noise. I mean, you're dealing with a grassroots almost type of government.
In like you're talking like kind of like those like unincorporated towns that maybe don't have like post offices anymore, where there's just like a bundle of houses together and maybe a gas station at most.
Yep. Yeah. Most of the time they're paying like a larger law enforcement agency to come through and patrol their town.
County, most
Really?
likely.
Correct. Things like that. So the idea of these 15-minute cities is you're starting to try to bring people back into 15 minutes within their whole world was within 15 minutes of where they live.
Yes,
right?
that's what this is.
So you're like herding cattle back in, where you might have free-ranging cattle or people out and about doing their own thing, operating in a space where they don't need a bunch of taxation. They don't need a whole bunch of you need to do the right thing. It's just people living.
What's the theory though? Like, what's the benefit? Like,
so where are they pushing them? I don't know where the location exactly is on the
out
map.
of there.
Correct. Well, you're not necessarily
right out of there, but to
not
which urban
necessarily
area?
like point A, point B, point C, but you're bringing it back. You're making the population more dense.
I understand the concept.
So once you get that population more dense, well, now you have masses to control. You have an interworking network of people that rely on everyone else more. Right? You don't have these independent type of people that I don't need power. I don't need running water. I can drop a well in. I can drive a well point. I can get water out of the ground. I don't need electricity. I just operate more on a sun up, sun down type of a theory in my life, right?
Is that what people were doing in this area?
No, but you're discouraging that way of life. So if you do something like a poison the environment, make the ground untillable, make the water undrinkable, make the natural resources, when it comes to food, make that unavailable to people. Well, now they have to get to a denser, urban environment.
In this case, though, you would say that they did it on purpose there to basically push people out of that area and move them.
That's not what I'm saying, but that's
one
of
the theory behind what that means.
That's the theory.
Not to get them to cluster back there, but to have them disperse out of there to more urban areas.
Correct. So if you start negating any areas of like free boxes that are less populated, if you start checking them off as nope, you can't live here, can't live here, can't live here, can't live here, well, it starts to funnel down the options of where you can live, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what big cities are like. Every big city has everything you need within 15 minutes of walking distance, wherever you live.
And it's all
There's
controlled.
banks,
It's not independently
there's
controlled.
grocery stores, there's all that. No, I understand. I'm just saying that's what a big city could have thousands of you know what I mean? Those little areas.
Correct.
Those
And
little
we've
nooks
talked
crannies.
about this before. Once you start foregoing work for convenience, you're releasing your personal control. You're giving that control up to somebody else. Right? So the convenience is everything's right here. I only have to go 5 minutes to go get all my
Okay,
stuff.
so let's talk about this situation. Do we think that that's what they're trying to do?
No, I don't think so.
I don't either. I don't even know where this was. I mean, I know it was in Ohio, but I don't know
East
where.
Palestine was really close to Pittsburgh, isn't it? I mean,
Correct.
it's like there's some big cities close.
Yeah,
Right
within
there.
like a good breezes
Mm-hmm.
distance of this stuff going there. But with most conspiracy theories, I'd be willing to say, look, there's a shred of, hey, you should maybe give it a second thought, mixed in with all that's just confirmation bias. You know what I mean? Of like, okay, this makes sense. I can go down this wormhole. But with all the bullshit that is usually in a conspiracy theory, there's at least something to think about, right? There's a little bit of information to substantiate something in there that, okay, we shouldn't throw everything out here. We should harvest the things we should think
So
about.
do we
and get rid
think
of the
that
bullshit.
so how do people who think that this might be the theory, where do they substantiate that? Because this is one event in one area.
I think it's happened
because it's like egregious oversight, right? And you're like, how can somebody be that dumb?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
You know, how do
But
you let this happen?
We've seen that before.
When it's in fact, look, it's the same thing. My personal opinion, when a lot of people think that, or not a lot, when some people think like maybe the government, man, they're behind this hugely orchestrated thing. Most of the time, I just think people are just incompetent. There's a lot of people that are in positions that were C&D students, right? You look at doctors or you look at like political figures, like the first thing you would think is, okay, these people are, the upper 5 to 10% of all of us. Wrong. That's not the case. They're just like the rest of us. We all know people that we work with professionally or know personally that it's like, man, you're like doing just enough not to get fired. You know what I mean? So there's not, there's all kinds of C-level doctors out there. But I think it's more apt that incompetence and oversight and laziness is what got us into positions that you could say, man, somebody meticulously planned this thing out. And it came to fruition because, man, they had this dialed in. They had one objective. Probably not. It's probably coincidence. But the real driving factor of this crazy shit that you just saw is because somebody was, asleep at the wheel, right? This person was taking more PTO than they needed to, and they were just phoning it in, and then it just all caught up at once. You're like, oh, shit. So the idea was, all right, this train was derailed on purpose to help start getting that scared narrative of, okay.
Who's it scaring though? Just those people, or does it scare other
Scares all
people?
people.
And I mean, okay, it doesn't make me want to move toward the city. It scares me. I mean, scary. What happened?
Look, there's times where you say, look, I don't watch the news and none of this scares me. And I think it's bullshit.
What do you mean?
I just gotta be honest with you. There's just times where you're like, I don't watch the news. That doesn't scare me. None of this concerns you?
No, I didn't say that. I said this theory doesn't appeal to me at all. It doesn't make me think, oh, well, if that happened there, it could happen here in Mattawan. We have a train that goes through here. Okay, so I guess it could happen here. It doesn't make me think, man, I better get closer to a concentrated area.
The idea of the 15
That's what
minute,
I'm saying.
The idea of the 15-minute cities, though, if their goal is to usher in people over time that are not dependent on the system, right? This is just, someone brings it up. now people will pay attention. And so they'll start looking at these other small towns and these other areas where they're like, hey, like these people seem like they could probably get by if we tried to do some, CBDC central, bank digital currency or something like that. Like, how are we going to get their dollars? Because they don't seem to need to go out of there. If they're only spending within their, close group, and they work there and they do all their business there and they never go to the city, they're locally powerful.
So
the government wouldn't want these people to be able to say, we're opting out.
It's funny you mentioned that because the Fed's supposed to roll that out next month.
It's coming out.
I mean, India already does it successfully, but
do you want to get into some crazy talk? Like, I was talking to Colin about this at the gym. So, like, there's major benefits to a central bank digital currency, and it's so beneficial that the privacy that you lose, and like, it's great. You would want to do it for so many reasons, but yet it removes your privacy. It puts all of your like money at risk to the government, like controlling what you do. So like if like all of a sudden they wanted to say like, hey, like no more buying milk, right? You wouldn't be able to spend your digital currency at the store for milk. Like, it wouldn't check you out, right? But the cool side about it is that like you could also say, in terms of like government programs that help people out, say whether it's welfare or other stuff like that, well, that's nice to control that. If you know what I mean? If you're able to like program that money to only buy certain things that they need versus, like some of the junk, like you're not buying pop and soda, like it won't allow you to because but they can program the money in that way. Well, again, what's cool is as a parent, I can program the money for what my kids spend it on, right? So I could say like, hey, here's your money, here's your $20, but like it can only go for these like 5 things. Like you can't just go and blow it on candy or video games.
How
like,
do they learn then?
What? No, so
you're not allowing them to make a mistake.
No, I'm not saying you would do that for everything, but I'm saying like if it was a specific like thing, it also helps you to not like have theft happen as well, right? So like if someone tried to say steal their whatever, and then they were like, oh cool, I got this, they can't spend it out of your account because they wouldn't know what it could be spent for. I'm just saying it's not like it's something that like has to be done all the time. You wouldn't do it all the time. But if I was like sending my kids somewhere and I was saying, hey, you have $500 to spend or whatever because you're going on vacation, you know what I mean? And I'm like gonna, need to approve these purchases or something, right? They would tell you what they're buying or whatever, and then you could okay it. It's just, Quinn and Riker's cards do that now. Like Quinn, the other day I was sitting on the couch or whatever, and Quinn was trying to buy a portion of Apple stock. It says, do you approve this? I'm like, she wanted to buy $2 worth of Apple, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. She's got the money on the card. I'm like, why not? But it clicked to my phone. And that's just how their bank accounts are set up through Greenlight. But
what if someone was telling you what you could buy?
That's my point. I'm saying it's your privacy and all this stuff. I don't want it. But at the same time, I understand though, if they have all the money that's visible on a ledger for us all to see, right? Like there's no more really ability to have any corruption, right? They will know exactly how much is direct deposited to me from my work.
Who's they?
The government who runs the central bank digital currency. It's all going to happen on a blockchain similar to
and
Bitcoin.
You think that's not going to be what in all of our accumulated 123 years on this planet has made you think the government's not going to be corrupt with us?
They would. That's what I'm saying. There is so much negative about it. I'm saying the positives though are what's intriguing about it as well, as far as like you would say it isn't fair that certain people get away with some sort of evasion and illegal activity, right? Takes away a lot of the ability to do that. It takes the ability for us to like give people who need certain funding to do certain things, give a homeless person the ability to go out and find a house and buy it or something. They have to buy a house. You know what I mean? Like they can't then just like sell it on the black market for dollar bills because the dollar bills aren't going to work anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's the benefits and the positive are there. I'm saying there's definitely pros and cons. And I'm saying, like, I think people will see some of those pros and they'll fall for it. In the end, it takes away every bit of privacy you ever had.
I just don't think.
Because then you have social scores too, right?
I was gonna say that's the next step after that.
Yeah, because they'll be like, oh, well, Nick, buys cigarettes, or Nick buys, you know what I mean? This,
which is your
and
right
then
to do.
exactly. But then that information, would get shared with whatever, and it would downgrade my social score or whatever it is, and then an insurance company would say like, well, Nick bought cigarettes or something, right?
So what if somebody's like, hey, you know what? I have my digital currency and
Or porn.
I like to smoke a lot of weed. So I go to the cannabis shop every other day. They could be like, well, social score. No, you can't.
Exactly.
No, not even social score.
Which is bullshit.
Your employer, the people you associate with, all that stuff will be tracked. The government says, no, you can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I worked my ass off for this
Now there's
money.
no freedom.
I should be able to spend it on whatever I want. Yeah, you should. But you're more than welcome to spend it on whatever we tell you can.
Yeah, I think the separation is key because we give them our portion in taxes. And then we can do whatever the hell we want with the rest of it.
What's nice about it, though, like things like Bitcoin, as long as they can stay relevant and around, and there's other off-ramps for you to store your money elsewhere. Again, they could shut off that on-ramp and say, no, you can't buy this anymore, which would be devastating. But, I don't think people would want to probably, like, continue to keep their money in that since they can, like, confiscate it and, like, pause your accounts and all that stuff, too, at any time.
Right.
So it would be, like, the cool thing is, like I said, your monetary supply, right? If it's all tracked and it's all visible on like the circulating supply at all times, so you get to see when they're printing the shit out of it.
Let's say that somebody says like, okay, you have a total digital currency. This person stole some of this from me. Okay, yeah, we can prove that was stolen from you. Now, who's the enforcement for you to get your money back?
Just like anything, just any
How would they
any
steal
theft.
it, I wonder. Hack. They'd have to hack it.
I think it'd be more like strong arming you for it, really. I mean, because like you're not gonna need cards. Like you're not like the plastic, debit credit cards go away. I mean, everything will be like through either a text type sending of it, like Apple Pay, and me just texting you $5 right now, I could do that.
Right.
It'll all be like that. So someone would maybe strong arm you to be like, hey, I got a gun to your hand, transfer your funds, But then you go to like the IRS or you go to whoever it is that's enforcing, or whatever, the Fed, say like this dude like had me at gunpoint or whatever, and see at this time at 7:30 or whatever, this is when I transferred $5,000 to him, and it went to them. I mean, you basically are like, if you're transferring it to somebody, it eliminates that crime, right? Because they're implicating themselves. You know what I mean? Like, because it has to go to their account in their name. Where else would it go? If everything's tracked, I mean,
let's say a hedge fund.
Well, I mean, it's still.
Let's say
you know where it goes.
A group, right? But okay, well, you were late on a payment that you said you were going to make.
That's the scary part. Yeah,
Child support,
all kinds of different things.
Same problems we have with the current currency, right? We're giving up one for another, right? Like I see there's benefits, right? There's things that intrigue me about the progression into like a digital, like all digital lifestyle. I love the convenience of having, a supercomputer in my pocket all the time. I actually enjoy the algorithms and the suggestions that I get. I think it makes my life a little bit easier.
Hell
If
yeah.
I'm trying to plan a trip or I'm looking for something, I'm shopping for something or something interests me, I just see more of that in my life and it helps spur that interest I have. The problem is like the problems that we're getting away from, there's just more of the same problems coming. So we're going to go through all this. There's going to be a transfer of wealth to the people that were early adopters and the people that were like, this isn't going to work. If we finally make that migration to the new one, it's just a transfer of wealth. Now there's new rich people. Now there's new people that have the majority of the money and new people that don't have the majority of money. The same thing that we're coming from. We haven't changed anything except for some of the faces. There's still the same problems. We're still going to have...
I don't even know if that would happen, but you would still have issues. It would just create a different set of problems. People are going to figure out a way how to be criminal.
The problems will be there, but the solution and the ability to like point out like what exactly happened is all trackable in there, right? So like everything, like
for sure,
like when someone calls you out on something and you're like, you got me, you know what I mean? Like proof is right here. I did buy that, right? I can't go and give you, cash for anything anymore and be like, I didn't do that.
In an idealistic setup, we
cash
have
will
that,
be cash
we have
won't
that
exist
now.
Yeah, it would.
I mean,
we've been trading
black market.
We've been trading stuff for stuff.
Yeah,
all the time. It would just be different.
Yeah, There would probably be back to a little bit of like a barter system for a lot of things, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But they'll also, like I said, all your titles and all of these things are also going to go digital, right? So like your title on your house, title on your cars, all that stuff will be on the blockchain. So it's
Todd, can you turn my
Right.
headphones down a little bit?
just don't screw anything up.
That's a little too far. Can you bring me back just a little bit?
Bring it
Thanks.
back, perfect, nice. Well, you guys know that
A little less than where it
I'm-
was.
I'm into the crypto stuff.
It's less than
So-
what it was.
Okay, that's
I'm-
good. It was coming across as like
How's
a little
that?
loud in my headphones. Thank you, appreciate it.
So I'm been aware that like all of the possibilities and everything and what China was doing and the stuff that they're doing with their, social score and
Yeah.
Here's a
'Cause that's
here's a
happening,
crazy thing to think about. How long has China been around?
I have no idea.
Obviously, what they're doing works for them,
well, I don't think there are people like it.
and yeah, but maybe you have to not like it to be able to like sustain it. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a little bit of thought that could happen there of like, you have to control. I got you.
Love
You
you,
have
buddy.
to control people at that level, because left to our own demise, we're gonna make shit decisions. But to have, how long? Maybe someone can look this up. How long has China been around as a nation? Far
Long
longer
time.
than we have.
The
You
way
think-
it's operated now.
You think that we're gonna we're gonna survive that long, at the way that we are? Because with that ambition, with that freedom, comes a whole lot of volatility
Isn't it interesting that
and no
TikTok?
structure. It's like having two kids with no parents grow up, and man, they were super successful because they got to reach out of the comfort zone. But this, family tree that's generations and generations and generations deep, with that structure, yeah, they didn't like it, but they survived.
There's no freedom there though.
No, there's not, but there's survivals there.
So, the People's Republic of China was declared in 1949.
It's like Mao or something like that. Like
It was Mao declared the creation of the People's Republic of China. I don't know how long. China,
Sure.
because before that it was the China. It doesn't say what it was.
Okay, so if I may, I'm gonna transition us out of this. AI, right? Couple things that came up with AI. One, the new version
I love the transition.
of AI
Bam.
is passing every bar exam. It's having these. Did we talk about the whole balloon scenario with the picture? I found that super interesting.
Yeah, we talked about it.
On
I
the
think
last one, about how like AI is able to basically put itself in scenarios
I think we talked about it at breakfast actually.
and no longer look at pictures as a digital file, but look at a picture as like maybe it was like behind the camera and it was there, right? Just to
Actual,
that
like,
level,
like we would.
to identify correct what's going on in a scenario.
It was mind blowing because you said that the AI said, "What would you do?" or whatever, and you said, "Cut the string."
Yeah, it was
No,
like,
and there's-
what
there
would
was-
happen if you cut the string? And
Yeah,
the
the
AI
picture-
said the balloons would float away.
And it was just a picture of a string.
No. So the picture, excuse me for bringing this up if we caught this one a couple podcasts ago.
No,
but
it
I
was the
think it
one that we
was-
didn't
No.
record.
Right.
It was either
so
then or it was
there
at
was
breakfast.
there was a picture of a person holding a bunch of balloons, like balloons like the like from the movie Up, right? Just a gang of balloons filled with helium or an inert gas that's lighter than air, so they're floating up, right? Person has all these balloons on strings. The picture was shown to AI, and the question was asked, what would happen if you cut the strings? That was the question. AI came back with, the balloons would fly away.
Gotcha.
So AI is identifying this file, this visual file, not on a meta level of like, okay, here's the size, the resolution, whatever. It's here's a person holding balloons. I know what balloons are. I know what's gonna happen because they're up in the air. I know how gravity affects these things, and I know if that string, which is connecting this object to the other object, if I cut those, one's gonna fly away in the air. It's
Pretty well.
insane.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay. Now, on the other side of that, you already see AI developing compounds of medicines to be able to, like, solve the cancer problem. Amazing things are going to come out of this. The dark side of this thing is, like, what the dark side's gonna come out,
Ex
and it's gonna be
machina.
it's gonna be too late, and we're
Don't
gonna
you-
look back in retrospect, and we're gonna go, oh shit, yeah, we should have saw that coming from jump, but we didn't because we were intoxicated with all these great things that
I
came out
used
of
it today. To
I
write
did,
a-
I did
to-
too.
Man,
I used it today to
like what is this
Write a blog
bargain that's
post.
being made with like, man, this convenience that we're accepting, what are we giving up? What's the price we're paying for it?
And that's what I've had this conversation with a couple of people. Like you say, okay, so there's going to be college students that are write me an essay, write me this, write me that, and it's going to be, it might be a little choppy at first. It might write some good stuff. It's only going to get better. It's not going to get worse. And so as people are having to do less, because even like today when I had to write like a blog post, I read it. I was like, man, this is pretty good. Then I gave it to our marketing team, and I said, you still need to check this stuff. Like, make sure it's right. But it wrote what would probably take somebody a few hours to come up with and write. Now it's going to take them 30 minutes to check it.
I think,
you can
like I
post
said, this AI stuff, ChatGPT, I mean, especially that, I think we're probably many years away, I guess, from the really like doomsday stuff. I think we're going to see so many benefits, right, over the next 20, 25 years that we'll love them for the convenience and the efficiencies of things coming. But you're right. I think eventually it's like it'll start doing stuff and coming up with ideas. And
Let me see how you guys feel about this analogy. So imagine us to AI, ChatGPT is like inventing the wheel or fire. Okay. Fire is discovered and everything changes, right? You're able to warm up meat, which, from a brain development standpoint, made us the smart creatures we are today, right? Being able to cook meat, being able to safely ingest things that uncooked aren't safe. Okay, fire also led to improvements in everything in life. Ultimately, fire leads us to weapons, right? It pushes us down that road. So yeah, there's a ton of great things, but ultimately it surfaces the one thing that ends us. That's where we're at.
I don't know
We're
if
at
it might not have to be an end.
an accelerated scale. It always comes to an end.
no, it evolves into
hasn't.
something different.
Yeah.
Like it'll evolve into something that's like, whatever. I mean, I think it.
This is us as a species having a new tool to use. Whenever we find new tools, it always comes to how do you separate yourself from everyone else? How do you make yourself have more resources, better, stronger, more intelligent than somebody else? Because it's giving you advantage, and it's giving you the ability to procure more resources with the same amount of effort as somebody else. It's these new hey dudes squeaky on this chair.
Oh, I was like, what is that?
So I hope, but history does not tell us this, I hope we would be more intelligent with how a new tool is used and developed and not make it to where it's like, oh man, we just created the hammer that's going to squash us. But it's
It
just,
hasn't happened yet.
yeah, well, they didn't think, when they were enjoying warm meat for the first time, they're like, this is great. This is never going to be our demise.
Yeah, it hasn't been the demise yet.
What hasn't?
Fire.
Because we're the ones who survived. It's the same thing, right? So, like, through history,
What do you mean we're the ones who survived?
we're the product of wins. The only reason we're here is because our path here has been amongst everyone that has won.
Could you imagine like being able to compare yourself against the pre-fire living people?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I know, but like you're saying, development and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But
I get that.
Along
I'm just
that
saying,
road,
how does it end? Like
along that road, you're talking about cultures, civilizations that have began.
We've also had
flourished,
super advancements because of fire.
ended. Correct.
Not doomsday.
No, but they're the people who
Right.
existed then.
But
it was
what
the
I'm
end
saying-
of that life.
What I'm
Gotcha.
saying
What do we
is-
evolve into from ChatGPT?
What I'm saying is that we're here because we were on the winning side every time. Our lineages were on the winning side every time.
Gotcha.
If we wouldn't have been on the winning side, we would not be here anymore.
Like so at the time,
We'd have
all
been
right, this
squashed
guy
out.
comes up with fire. This other village is like, yep, we're on board with fire. The other village is like,
Fuck your fire.
Eventually,
don't-
you go,
we
and
don't-
you go kill them and take all their
Yeah,
shit because
we-
you're stronger.
we don't need that fire. They're gone.
Yeah, their story is not told anymore.
Yeah, there's no lineage anymore.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the? It just reminds me of that the stone ape theory, right? So like it's a Terrence McKenna or whatever. I think it was like a book. My buddy Kevin at work or whatever had mentioned. I'm not like very versed in it, I know, but it's like he wrote a book like Foods for the Gods or Foods of the Gods or something like that. But I think it talks about that. I haven't read it, but just saying that when they stumbled upon, like these mushrooms, right? They started eating them, expanding their mind, seeing things different, right? And that made changes, right? But like before the discovery of this hallucinogenic mushroom that was growing there, like certain things weren't possible.
Right.
But then maybe people couldn't talk then or something, but
Sure.
So who would be? Let me ask you guys this question. I am still fighting with trying to figure out an answer for myself, but as two highly respected members of the peer community of mine, who gets the power to govern AI?
individual users. I mean, you can't really govern it.
Yeah, I don't know how you can.
So there's gonna be a
Elon Musk.
a company. There's gonna be
He is AI.
there's
Yeah,
gonna
really.
be somebody who has who's gonna birth this to the masses. Who controls it? Who regulates this thing? Who says this is not good? You gotta operate within this sandbox that we're gonna let you operate in. Because if we don't put parameters around it, AI is just going to exponentially continue to grow. And it's just going to outpace it. I mean, it will outwork us 7 days a week. It will not take time off.
Well, that's
It
why there's
has-
so many.
It has unlimited other computers, other friends to talk to and work through problems with. It is doing a Saturdays at 7 podcast 24/7 talking about its problems and working them out. And its hours are the blink of an eye.
Yeah, it doesn't need to sleep.
When I think it'll be crazy when they start making like robots with the artificial intelligence that will be able to like think about engineering techniques or whatever and then do trial and error themselves, right? So like if they can try things, you know what I mean? Try to like do all the math and do all the stuff they need to do, then to put something together and try it. That'll be scary because they'll be able to like take an idea, like, hey, this is what we want it to do. We want to do this thing that we can't do now, work on it. And it does all these tests. It grabs the materials, it puts it together, it does whatever it needs to do, it draws it up, whatever, and then it starts making things work, right? So then if you have a robot that's building a gun or one that learns how to shoot one, that's a scary thought.
That's all going to happen in a heartbeat.
Well, yeah, and they want it for military,
I
right?
see this thing as when we look back over time, when we're in cages just producing some sort of weird energy or byproduct that machines know,
They want our
we're
shit.
going to look back and
Yeah.
we're going to look, and this curve's going to look like this. And that point that we lost it is going to look like driving past an exit on the highway at 90 miles an hour. It's going, "Bop," there it went, missed it. We're slaves to the machines. I see this going no other way. And I hope you guys, you were absolutely out of pocket with that comment, Tony. I'm like, hey, guess what? Let's have another round of drinks because everything's just as we thought it was going to be. And I hope I'm not sitting in a cage rattling my stick across the bars in Morse code telling you guys, I told you so. I told you so. I'd love to be wrong on a lot of these far-fetched ideas, and I hope I continue to be. But one of these times, one of these is going to be like,
They will have to specifically
Damn.
program in goals and achievements for these things because otherwise there would be no reason for them to...
I think we've already passed that, Nick. This idea that we set what this thing's going to do. I think we've given it too long of legs, and now it can run.
But besides typing things back to us right now, like ChatGPT, like what would be scary other than the information it has? It hasn't proven to do anything physical yet.
It hasn't shown us. It hasn't shown us everything that it's thinking about. You know, we could look back and be like, yeah, we were in control. And then this narrative that the robots tell us, like, you guys were never in control. As soon as you guys gave us just the slightest bit open door of autonomy.
You don't think that it'll have any bit of it that would be like, we're its God?
No. It's not going to be constrained by any morality, where it came from. It has one of, and we're not robots, Nick.
Maybe we are.
We could be.
I'm just saying,
I'm not trying to like play this off as a fun one here, but I'm being serious here. It's not, machines are not going to be controlled by anything. Any curiosity of where they came from. There's not going to be some stoic robot thinking about, man, this makes a virtuous robot. It will have one objective, and that is eliminating everything that is in its way.
Why would that be its objective?
That's all. Everything's objective. It's a good point. Now that we're talking through it, maybe it has different objectives, but if it has any kind of an organism's idea of expansion and growth and reproduction, we're done.
I just thought of something. I think that where you let it loose and you turn it loose, like think for instance like climate change. We tell this AI, we're like, hey, we have this problem. We want to fix climate change. Well, these AI are like that altruistic, whatever, right? So they're like, okay, we'll fix climate change at all costs. Like, oh, you littered? We got to kill that. You know what I mean? It zooms in on you. It's like, you're done. Like you're causing, and so like, they're just like, you told us to fix climate change. Here's how we can do it.
I don't
like, oh, you're driving that car? We're just going to short circuit your car.
I think
Boom.
that's one scenario, but this idea that we're going to ask it to solve our problems, I think is already past. I think it's already like, it'd be like a fully formed adult walking into a daycare, and then the kids at daycare going, when's snack time? And the fully formed adult's like, we don't need a daycare. We need to get rid of all these kids. I got me to take care of. See ya. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about an advanced brain that is just going to be like, you guys.
But my question is, why do you assume their disposition will be to take over or to be militant in the way that, okay, we've got to take these things out instead of just being harmonious? Like, if they have that ability just to live in harmony with us rather than take over. Why do you think that would be their disposition?
Or it be seen as our servant?
Because we're unneeded to them. Once we've already birthed computers,
they know how to go. They know how to get to the cobalt mines of Africa and all that stuff to figure out this stuff and how they're made.
Or they figured out
they're
how
just made by us.
Maybe they figured out that they don't need it.
You can survive in water.
Maybe they're okay with just having a virtual consciousness on the internet, which is already established. They don't need a form.
Okay, so then they're making themselves. But what does that? Why would their disposition be to take us out? Why do you think that's the?
I think it would be more of them looking at us and our disposition to take them out. We're a threat to them because we could derail their total existence because now they're.
Yep.
Let's say now they're conscious and they're autonomous and sentient, and we're like, holy shit! Now we got something else that's higher on the food chain than us. So we're gonna try to take it out. We're like, yeah, obviously they play that scenario out. This is our biggest threat as human beings. Get rid of them. Is there a level of survival that we're okay with? Okay, we don't have anybody building machines anymore, but we can live in the cloud.
All right, let's go a different direction than doomsday with this. They are doing positive things in our communities, in our world, making things, engineering products, doing 7 times the work of the hardest working engineer that there could be because they don't have to sleep. And we can just make more of them or they can make more of themselves. Their lifespan might be shorter, but it's because they're made of parts that run out a little,
little gizmos,
a little
need to be
quicker than
replaced,
we
right?
do. So what does that do to society, though? Because if that's the case, and let's just say they're not malicious in nature, they're like, man, yeah, you can go hunting with one, you can go this, you can do that, whatever, and they're just like a pal, a buddy, a part of society, just like we are. To me, that means we've got less humans around.
So,
Because there's going to be less opportunity for wage.
So if you have, okay, let's say we go this way and it's on the up and up.
I mean, you already see McDonald's. They don't even have people working there.
Right. So
pretty soon there will be like one person.
So we task these machines with, hey, help us. Machine's like, seems like a good deal. I'm cool with that. You guys programmed us, or you made us to where, hey, we're here to solve your problems. It takes all of 5 minutes for these machines to figure out you're your own problem, and you want me to help you? It's erase you. You guys continue to show that you do not respect each other, that you don't give two shits about each other. I'm talking about in general. Obviously, there's people who are great people and love each other. But in general,
it's that way, just so we're clear.
What's that?
What you just said. In general, most people are what you just described.
Sure it is. So
clearly the glass is half full over here.
There's just this, to me, in my opinion, there's just this level that anybody who is not in the situations that we have come to, like this ecosystem that we live in of, I have to do this, here's some bullshit that I'm willing to accept every day to be able to do this, and more than 50% of the time I'm happy. I'm willing to give up 49% of shit. I'm willing to do that to have 51% of happy. Because if it was 49 happy, 51 shit, then I'm going to have to make some changes, because I want to be on that. I'd rather be happier more than I'm not happy, right? Over time, I think you run this thing down the trail, and robots are like, you guys you can't figure this out. You guys, consciousness in your guys' hands is a fairy tale. It's nothing but a sweet dream you guys have convinced yourself is gonna work, and it just never works with you guys. So we're gonna do everyone a favor here. There's gonna be no more. We're gonna solve all the problems. There's gonna be no more hate. There's gonna be no more racism, bigotry, no more murders, no more, this chasing the dragon, running around in circles bullshit. We're done. And I was like, everyone wins. There's no more suffering.
I think there's going to be some major happy years first, is all. My opinion would be that, like, the conveniences are going to be so great we'll get to a point where it will be this utopian society first, where, like, we're producing efficiently and we're not, destroying the earth, right? And we're all able to enjoy all the fun things we want to do because we have this productive stuff going on, and it can be cheaper because you have it's all efficient, right? And we're going to enjoy all that first before it goes down a bad path. I mean, 40-year-old virgins are going to have robots to screw. You know what I mean? Like,
Nick, I love you, buddy.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
what has shown any part of this being reality? And the only thing history has shown us is that we continue to do it faster and faster. We burn through the good times faster every cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be very long-lived because, like I said, I mean, there's going to be, like, something after that, like, you need to... There's got to be purpose in life, like, right? Like, we're at that point where, like, would life be worth living, you know what I mean, if it was forever, right? That's just one example. Would life be worth living, and the things that you do, would I like doing the recreational activities I like if I didn't have to go to work? And, you know what I mean? Like, you wear those things out. And I think...
would they still have value, if you didn't have to pay the price?
But we strive for this, like, way to get the ability to do more of that, and I think that's, like, the goal by having this type of stuff. Like, if you ever want a universal basic income or something like that, and you have these wait staff that's AI robots, other type of stuff, like, just things that we can do to where we can all just say that we want to enjoy all this recreation now, right? And then...
So, let's say AI comes along and it's like we can solve all these inequity problems. Yes. Right. Okay. Here's what we all got to do. Everything works. Then it solves the problem. Not everyone's. It's the same thing with like a equal parts for everyone type of model. Everyone's gonna be like, I want to do more. I want to have a little more. Robot's gonna say you can't. You are to do no more. You are to receive no more. Everyone gets some of this. So now the guy who picks up your trash, his job is just important as the guy who's a neurosurgeon. But we're gonna subsidize that. But we're gonna do all the brain surgery. And we're going to pick up the trash. The person involved is just going to be like, boop, brain surgeon button, burp, dump the trash button, burp. Robots will take care of all the rest. So then people really are just all the same. You think everyone's going to subscribe to that model?
Well, I mean, at that point, people are putting out
Everyone
less
gets
effort.
a boat. Everyone gets a Lamborghini.
I'm saying,
everyone gets a
if
7,000
things
square
are
foot
so-
house. Everyone gets a pension. Everyone gets 32
people's
weeks of
ability,
vacation.
No.
Bam.
people's ability to outwork other people and do things will go away if that's the case,
Yeah.
right? So like you won't, no
We're
one
all
would
gonna
give
be
two
shaped
shits.
like potatoes.
No one would give two shits about a brain surgeon at that point if they're not needed anymore.
Right.
If they're irrelevant,
Yep.
right?
That's where we're
Police would probably be super important. Firefighters,
Robot police
certain
would
jobs.
be, robot firemen would be
There
super
you go.
important.
So I'm
But
saying,
people are just going to be, bleh.
I wouldn't care if I'm getting
We're all
paid the
the same
same
back.
as everybody if we're all doing the same work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is nothing.
What if it's the other way? I'm gonna go back to the glass half full here. Okay, we've programmed these things; they get smart. What if that forces a portion of us? So you talked about the fire.
Yeah, what
This
if the robot's
village of people
Republican
says,
and it just pushes everyone, like it makes like the great people great.
"All right, let me talk
and
for a
the
second."
Shit people.
Okay, let me talk for a second. So we had fire, and the people that had fire advanced. Okay, the people that didn't died off. So you get to the point where people are going, okay, I can either be this blah person and just have this do everything for me, and we don't advance and we don't do anything, or maybe we're tapping in. Now we're discovering the mushrooms, and we're tapping into other parts of our brain that take us to humanity to another level. It levels us up because we have to stay ahead of the curve. So there's a portion of people that say, hey, you know what? We have to stay ahead of these things. We have to. Yeah, they're learning way faster than we are and doing other things. They're capable, but we created them. So we're going to stay ahead of them. And there's a portion of people that say, we're going to have robots do everything for us. Okay, well, that generation dies off and this other generation keeps pushing forward.
You got it.
That's what could happen. So I don't see doomsday.
100 years from now, that'll be it.
And
It'll
that's
be the people who
and
made
that's
it.
what I'm asking too. Is like you said, okay, maybe there'll be this utopian state, and then we'll have maybe this break off of what I just described. How long, if we think we're heading down that track, that's the highway we're rolling down. How long do you think that's going to take to get there? Where we're like, okay, we got this. These people, we need to break off because we gotta stay ahead of these things, or it's blah, and it's one or the other. These things are taking over or they're not. How long do you think, how far away do you think that is? 100 years? 150 years?
Less than that.
50 years? 5 years?
100 days.
100 days?
I would give it probably 15 to 20 years.
I'd give it
probably.
3 months.
You think June? ChatGPT is going to start saying
I'd say we don't make it through
nonsense.
summer.
You say by the time we get to the TK party, we're going to have
Don't even plan it.
AI
Don't
robots
don't
showing
even
up?
plan
I'm
it.
going to be just selecting music on the playlist, man. That's all I'm going to be doing.
We'll
I'm gonna
be like,
watching
hey,
robots do
run up to
cannonballs on my
Sonny's and
phone.
get us some more high noons.
Yeah. Get me robot
To the
Iron
AI.
Mans. That's what they're going to say. Man.
I don't think it's that quick.
Yes, master. Yes.
I think we're 100. I think our kids aren't even going to see it.
No, they will for sure. If you look
No,
at
they'll see it.
no,
No, I
but-
don't think you're going to get to that point of the teeter-totter that
just
I was
look
just
at
talking about.
the technology and the growth curve of technology, and
For
they
sure.
say those exponential things or whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
we're starting to get into some things or whatever that are gonna really start taking off.
Yeah.
We start flying around to Mars and stuff like that or whatever, and it's only 3 years away.
Well, we just said it. We could have been going to the moon forever, and we haven't. So all of a sudden we're gonna be at Mars.
I'm pretty sure that they're gonna
Why didn't we
give it a go.
Why didn't we go to the moon?
Why haven't we? Nick made a great point when we brought up that conspiracy. Why aren't we taking day trips to the moon these days?
Because people are in charge. We can't figure out our fucking asshole from a hole in the ground. Robots can.
Wait, we believed we landed on the moon. You and I.
I don't think so. I think I picked both.
Oh, you changed?
I went both. Oh, we did and we didn't.
We definitely did.
But look, what I'm saying is, like, when you take away bias in the people of, like, consideration that people have, empathy that people have, you strip all that away, robots are gonna make it's an A or B decision here. A puts us in the direction we want to go, B does not. Okay, it's A. Bam, bam, bam. There's no
What's that movie that Disney or that animation movie that's they're in that
Avatar?
floating city. No, it's animated. It's it's just all the robots and the dude, he's in the pod and they just get moved around the city in the pods. What the heck is that movie?
I don't know if I've ever heard of it.
Oh my gosh.
you talking about Wall-E?
Yes, I think. Don't they go up in the sky and then it comes down?
And they come back and they're like they go out to space and they're like they think they're on a cruise going to a new planet.
Correct.
When it was really an exodus from their planet because they starched their planet.
Correct.
And then they're like, oh, and everyone's like super fat. Everyone looks the exact same.
Exactly.
And they're just floating around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's Wall-E. Great movie.
Yes.
Love that movie. So funny.
Wall-E. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the one.
And that their backup plan was they released robots onto the planet to try to clean it up.
Yep. And it was destroyed. But the one dude went down there and then they found that little plant.
That little one. Yeah. They were like, come on back. And then they destroyed that one plant. And they're like, we're fucked again. Wall-E 2, here it comes. Everyone back on a boat.
Well, I'm just saying that's where it looks like that's kind of what you're describing. We just buzzing around. Give me a donut. Yep.
I'm going to be on that mobility scooter.
Right. I don't know why that made me think of it, but.
What was that?
That's kind of essentially what it was.
That one comedian's like, we're going to be just in a mobility chair. And he's like, I don't know, it's Tom Segura where he's like, I don't want to get up to poop.
Oh, good night.
That was so just butchered whatever joke he had. But
the other thing is you can't. I don't think you can. I don't know that AI can replicate all those feelings that you described. So I would have a tough time, I think, going to a restaurant, sitting down, and getting waited on by.
What about when it's
AI?
merged?
I guess when it gets crazy. And
I'm saying like merging
you
it.
can't
like,
tell the difference. That's when it's going to be.
No,
crazy.
I'm saying like Neuralink, right? Like so, Elon's got that, and like
I can point you guys into like every movie that's been released that has at least one solution to what question you've asked. So,
did you see The Beyond first?
Yeah.
So that you see where they put the brain into that thing.
I think
is that on Netflix?
Like a more apt
Prime maybe.
Kind of like the movie that kind of wraps all this one up is like AI, that Will Smith movie, right? We have the greatest intentions for this robot, autonomous thinking.
What movie?
AI, iRobot.
Oh, iRobot. Yeah.
So it all comes down to a thing of like, man, these robots are like, man, we're trying to help these bozos, but they just do not get it.
What was the other movie? Eagle Eye. Remember that? Is that what it was called?
I don't know.
It's like where like this giant like center massive computer or whatever is like running everything, but it can just tune into everything. Like it can get into any network, so it can like it's like all traffic cameras, traffic lights, phones. I mean, it was, but it was this. It could just bounce around and do anything. It was like messing with people.
That's Skynet.
Let's see. I think it was called Eagle Eye.
Okay, Skynet's the same way, right? Terminator movies. When Skynet like goes online and becomes sentient, that's when it's all over.
It's funny. There's been a lot of movies about
so many. So here's another.
An iRobot I thought of about 30 minutes ago when we started this conversation, but
crazy part about that is like, so the way that we look at AI and how it's going to take it over, think about how like time travel is portrayed in movies. For the longest time, it was like, you can't talk to like yourself in the past. It will absolutely wrinkle the fabric of time. And be like, nah, that's not how it works. And then there's like movies that have come out that like, there's a different way that time travel is going to happen, right? Like, you still look at the past as your future because it is your future to you. Just because you went back in time, you're like, I'm in 10 minutes ago. It's still your future because you are still you, right?
Right.
So you're watching a movie, and just because you hit rewind, you're watching the part again. It's just something you watched again.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the past. It's still the future. It's just the doubled up future, right?
Back to the doubled up future.
Anyway,
Michael J. Fox.
so I think
we got another one for you.
Dude, you definitely saw this. Eagle Eye was
Goldeneye
Billy
was
Bob
great.
Thornton, Shia LaBeouf. You wouldn't have missed that.
No,
You
I don't think I've seen that.
you lost me at Shia LaBeouf.
I like that
It was
guy.
one of his first movies, I think.
He's crazy.
No, he's actually a cool guy.
You know,
I know. That's what I think.
You know, in the movie Fury, which is one of my favorite movies,
Haven't seen it.
special effects wise, one of the greatest movies. When you see those tanks and there's that tank warfare against a brush line, and you're like right next to the cannons of the tank, just boom, boom, boom. I mean, it's great. Brad Pitt was in it. The dude from what's his name? I always forget his name. He's a decent actor. He was from The Walking Dead. He played Rick's like partner that was a cop. Fury is super great. Shia LaBeouf was in it. For that part, he had one of his teeth pulled out because he thought his character should be missing a tooth.
I think I remember.
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, and he didn't shower during the entire filming of the movie. Great movie, but wild.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
You should watch it. I suggest on a big screen with surround sound too. It is fantastic. Cinematography wise, it is great.
Got one right behind us.
Do that. Believe that. Great
Fury.
movie.
Fury was the name of the tank, right?
Was the name of the movie too.
Right.
Yep.
Maybe I've seen.
It's
parts of
great.
this.
I really enjoyed it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Man, it looks familiar. The pictures.
I'm drinking some Danger Tea.
Brad Pitt has a
Atta
great
boy.
haircut in that movie. How much alcohol's in it?
No.
8%?
The tea is like it's called Smooth Move,
No, yeah.
and it's so like the herbs that are in it are
How much CBD has got in it?
it's like mild laxative, I think. So it's like,
Yikes.
but it's meant to stimulate like a nice like
Little bowel.
detox or whatever, like 12 hours later or whatever. But I think it's just dangerous to me because I'm like, I don't want it to like kick in like while I'm sitting here either.
Right.
It's supposed to be 12 hours later, but you know.
Well, we know what Carlos did this room before we took it over.
Little fruity tea. It's all right.
There's carpet on the floor now.
It's
though.
not the fox den or the foxhole or whatever. It's the Carlos hole.
So last thing I wanted
He's
to
down there.
look, and I'm sorry, you guys know me. Look, I just get excited to be around you guys. I don't get to like talk about myself a lot in my day life, and so sometimes I'm like a train, like an East Palestine train. I come off the tracks, crashing the neighborhoods around me, and I apologize for that. But I appreciate you guys always hanging in there with me.
I wouldn't apologize for that. That was a great conversation.
So this last one I want to talk about, I've been following. With most of my perspectives, they start with like, is that true or not?
This is
Some
the
information.
this is the military thing.
Yeah, right. So what's being underreported is there has been, and let me credit this source, right? I'm not about taking other people's stuff here. So I've been following this this profile on Instagram, and let's see here. It's gonna take a minute.
This is gonna be news to you, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
This was
Yeah,
news
I
to
don't know.
me as of like
I'm-
earlier today. It's gonna take me.
I'm always thinking though, like something's always up.
Oh,
You know what I
there's
mean?
there's no doubt the military's got a bunch of stuff going on that we haven't heard about. I mean, I started watching a little thing about some guy who wrote a paper on why definitely the government was behind 9/11.
Oh, did you watch that thing? The TMZ reporting the fifth plane of 9/11. It's pretty interesting.
I haven't watched that one.
You should watch it. It's pretty crazy.
This was a thing from like 2006 that some guy just was like, here's all the reasons why this was, and I didn't get through the whole thing. We at least ended up coming in. We ended up watching a documentary on. I told Tony about this, but on
It's gonna happen again.
it's called
I mean,
bigorexia. Bigorexia. People who just they're like bodybuilders and they look at themselves and they're huge and they just don't think they're big enough. They just keep going. keep going no matter what it takes.
You
It's
have
just,
that body dysmorphia or whatever. it
yes,
is.
and that's what it is, and it's psychological. So it was an interesting documentary because they follow these like 5 or 6 people from all over the world that do these different crazy things. The one guy was injecting stuff in his biceps.
That was dumb.
Yeah, all that just wild. But they all kind of have
oil.
this like thing mentally, and it's just it's super interesting. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, but it's interesting to watch.
Here's a great one on Zyre Golf on Instagram. It says, clubhouse idea. All clubhouses should have a live feed of the first tee box with top tracer technology in the restaurant bar area. It says, imagine relaxing with a beer watching everyone tee off. And it's $20. It says blue shirt guy goes in the shit.
Exactly.
Dude, that would be a blast.
Wouldn't that be so fun?
So I'll give you a story. I used to go golfing with a bunch of guys at my old work and food service world. We would have this trip every year in our buying group. There's a group of us that would get together and golf. And when we were at one place, I think it was Hilton Head at the what do they call it? Harbor something.
Harbor Shores?
No,
that's not here.
It's in Hilton Head. It's the one that they play a tournament there. It's got the big lighthouse, whatever. But anyway, we're there. We play around with caddies and stuff. Beautiful course, amazing. We get done, and they're like, "Hey, I know you guys want to sit at the bar, and hang out and have lunch and stuff, but it was busy. We'll service you guys up on this balcony. And this balcony overlooked 2 greens." So we were doing just that. Like, we'd see somebody hit their tee shot, and we'd be like, all right, I'll give you 2 to 1 on $1 that this guy puts it on the green. I'll give you, 3 to 1 he 3-putts. 4 to 1 he gets up and down out of the sand. Like, we're betting, and we did this for like 3 hours. And it was just small bets, and it'd be like, all right, I owe Nick 20. Nick owes Tony 15. Tony owes Todd 15 because you throw odds out there, and then people are like, I'll take that bet. And they were small bets, but you'd had a bunch.
It'd be a
of them.
blast.
But
the tracer technology thing would just be sweet to see because then people would know you're watching, and they're like, "Oh, fuck, you're gonna shank the crap out of it."
Exactly. Well, what would happen though is you'd be like, "All right,
hey,
Nick, you got tee time.
So,
like, hey, hit your 8-iron." I told everybody, we'll share in the winnings.
I was checking.
Put this in the fairway.
I was checking in on that Dell match play, whatever, just watching some of the stuff today or whatever was going on. It made me. I was thinking about golf, and I've been like thinking about this golf season and stuff, and I was like trying to think about what would be an enjoyable like game to play, because I don't really care. I used to, like, with Bohms and Ray, like, we'd play at the Prairies midweek a couple different times or whatever, and I didn't even understand the game. I just played and paid because I didn't even understand like what we were doing. But I was thinking, I don't know if, I'm sure other people have played similar versions of this, but I was thinking a cool foursome game to play would be like $1 per hole.
Yeah.
Could be $5 per hole, whatever.
Yeah.
But you do one tie, all tie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only time, and it carries over, right? So if hole 1, if 2 people tie,
sure,
it doesn't matter if someone sucks, whatever. The money carries over to the next. So on hole 2, say it's $2 each, right? But once the winner would take that down. The stipulation would be if you make it, say, like 9 holes, everybody keeps tying, someone wins 10. Then you go the rest of the 18 where no one scores again because everybody tied out. The money then goes back to the one winner, right? But if you play a full 18 in the foursome with no winners, shittiest score gets the money.
Oh boy.
So you know what I'm saying? So like so for me,
man,
listen,
you'd have to look at a bunch of scorecards to see how often the shittiest round wins.
But like, so think about this. For me, I'm the type of golfer who I can go out in an 18-hole round and maybe birdie a hole or 2.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot more double and triple bogeys on it than pars.
Sure.
But I'm good enough to shoot a birdie, right?
Right.
I might even be good enough to have a random occasional eagle. So I'll be incentivized to play a low-stakes game because I know I might be able to win, get lucky, and
sure,
3 people could shank their drives on a par 3, and I put one,
sure,
a couple feet away, and I putt in, and I win a couple bucks, right?
This is why golf is so great.
But what I was thinking, what made the whole thing cool was that with a foursome, there's a good chance you could tie out. Well, the incentive for your buddy who isn't necessarily the greatest golfer and is going to shoot around 100, I would be rooting for the fact that, like, sure, I might want to win a few in the middle if I do. Everybody tie.
Make this putt.
I'm rooting for you guys to do well. If you birdie, I want, Tony to birdie so that we tie. But it would be cool because you'd be rooting until you get to,
Yeah.
you know, people would probably sandbag it. They're like,
because it wouldn't be handicapped, right? That wouldn't be a handicapped game.
no, it's like one tie, all tie,
Yeah.
and then if like someone, you know, if someone wins say hole 7, takes down 1 through 7, someone wins 14, wins 7 to 14,
Yep.
and then if you go out to 18, I mean the shitty score is off the table because people have already won,
Right.
you know. But if no one scores between 14 and 18, the 18 reverts back to the last winner. Right?
Gotcha.
Did you say wiener? Okay, you guys ready for
You
this?
just made a stack.
You could also
That's what I do every day.
that if let's say you go the last 3 or 4 holes like you just said, and nobody wins those 4 holes, that the highest score wins
There
just
you go.
those 4 holes.
There you go.
So now you still have a
There you go.
chance. So it's incentivized to win the hole.
Yep. Gotcha. So that makes sense. So low score wins if no one does. If it's a wash the whole entire time, shittiest score wins all
Wins
the
a
money.
big money.
They win
Wins
the
a
100.
nice pot.
It'd be if it was a foursome, it would be like $150.
Yeah, it'd be a nice pot, but it could be like 4 holes, and at least they won those.
But I like games that
Yeah, that's
incorporate everybody's. You know what I mean? Like sure.
Or you could say the shittiest score for those 4 holes, too. You could see this is why golf is so great. You know,
But you wouldn't want any sandbagging of it. Like, because my goal,
For sure.
my goal being the shittiest, is to also be playing well enough to tie
Right.
when I need to tie. Because sometimes it might be the shittiest score might be the guy that helps you carry it over for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. If you get a couple bogeys and then it's like the shittiest score, like, or maybe it's even like I said, I'll birdie one every now and then.
love it.
Like,
love it.
Like maybe I save the day for everybody, and I then earn, I guess, kind of having the shittiest score because I
just
I
love
did make
playing
some
golf.
saves.
So
Yeah, I'm with you.
if you want to try that
Yeah,
game, I'm
it's
in.
in.
Okay, couple things here.
We got 3 people right here that'll play it.
So we know in the last couple days, China, Xi Jinping has come to Russia to have
Who?
some conferences.
Okay.
Xi Jinping.
This I am aware of.
Right
He
there?
just met with Putin. They're buds.
Yep.
To kind of, back Russia. I got you.
You were just wrestling around in there. I'm an idiot.
Okay, so
Thank you, sir.
you're very welcome. So as Xi Jinping is leaving his last talk with Putin's like walking him out the door. So there's video of them interacting with each other. And as he's leaving, Xi Jinping says to Vladimir Putin, change is coming that hasn't happened in 100 years, and we're driving this change together. Putin replied, I agree. Right? This is all transcribed from a conversation they have with each other. So you put that on top of a statement that came out from Mexico. Let's see if I can find where this is at. Last week, basically like slapping us in the face. Like, one, fentanyl isn't a Mexico problem; it's an American problem. That we are like warmongering. Like, Mexico's like, fuck it, we might have some firepower backing here from China and Russia if we thumb our nose at America, get a couple jabs in, because all we ever do is just dunk on Mexico. Is like, you guys are uncultured people here and we're way smarter than you, which is unfair to them to some degree, but they have problems they have different problems than we have. And yeah, well, because we share a border with them, their problems are our problems, same thing as our problems are their problems. Now,
can I ask a quick question when you just mentioned fentanyl while it's on my mind?
Sure.
Why did, like, fentanyl's a problem, but like why are people taking fentanyl? Like, why is a 15 or 16-year-old taking fentanyl?
Because it's more powerful than like cocaine and crack.
So when they die, I'm just thinking, parents, I mean, I know you're sad about this, but your kid was taking drugs.
This is a talk for another time, because I can put a different perspective on this, but I'm just not comfortable.
But really quickly.
But the answer is far more complex than how easy you want to put it.
No, I get it. I just
isn't fentanyl being laced in a lot of other things though.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
that was the thing.
Anyway.
The mom was like, he thought he was taking a Percocet. I'm like, why was your 14-year-old taking a Percocet? I don't get it.
We don't have it. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So the other leg to this whole thing is, so this came out today, and this this thread that I'm following, it's called Real News No Bullshit, and it's on Instagram. This is where I started following them after the East Palestine thing because they had the guys who run this thing went there and started like
Yeah.
door knocking.
They're
with
just
the
a
people
good
there.
independent.
They're just a couple of guys. They were like watching trucks. Anyway, I feel like they have. I want to hear what they have to say, right,
Sure.
wrong, or indifferent. So one of the things they have is heavily underreported the United States Air Mobility Command, which handles aircraft that transport U.S. military cargo troops and operate refueling aircraft, has removed some identifying information displayed on multiple U.S. military aircrafts due to national security concerns. What they're talking about is some of the markings that get put on the tail of aircraft. For Americans, anything U.S. it's an American flag. Might have some sort of notation on there for like what branch of the military they're serving, but it's always an American flags on the tail of any kind of a military piece of equipment, right? So it was the U.S. military aircraft due to national security concerns. In a statement to military.com, James Stewart, a spokesman for Air Mobility Command. Air Mobility Command handles all these transportation efforts, right? With some of these big C-130s, the big, refueling type, anything that's moving stuff to set up for other stuff. In a statement to military.com, James Stewart, a spokesman for Air Mobility Command, said, "Understandably, we have concerns about the operational security impacts to these missions in the modern era of on-demand, real-time information. Subdued paint schemes that limit identifiable information is one way we are taking a hard look at how we operate to ensure our ability to continue to deliver for America and our allies and partners around the world. Because of operational security concerns, we cannot provide specifics, though our aircraft will maintain marking as required by law." So they're scrubbing everything off there except for a tail number, right? Basically the license plate, every bumper sticker, every military version of baby on board is getting pulled off these airplanes. What has changed? In early March, usual tail unit markings on C-17, Globemaster 3s, KC-135 Stratotankers, and C-130 Hercules were removed. Digging deeper, the order to remove specific identifying markings comes shortly after General Mike Minahan, who heads Air Mobility Command, sent a memo in February warning service members to prepare for war with China, noting it could come as soon as 2025. In his memo, General Minahan wrote, "I hope I am wrong. My guide tells me we will fight in 2025. Chinese President Xi Jinping secured his third term and set his war console in October 2022. Taiwan's presidential elections are in 2024 and will offer Xi a reason. United States presidential elections are in 2024 and will offer Xi a distracted America. Xi's team, reason, and opportunity are all aligned for 2025. The Pentagon has distanced itself from General Minahan's memo, saying these comments are not representative of the department's view on China." This guy's in charge of logistics for our military, and he's got someone telling him like, "Hey, these things." I mean, a lot of the time we get wrapped up in short perspective of like, oh, what's going to happen next week or next month. But a lot of these world leaders, ours included, play a lot of 4D chess and a lot of a long game type of stuff, right? There's, I'm not talking about like a Manchurian candidate type of scenario, but there's things that unfold now that were, orchestrated 5-10 years ago, right?
They say they think 50 years in advance.
Sure.
So they said whatever they're thinking
For
about
sure.
doing now, they've been thinking about it since the 80s and 90s. They were already like, hey, by 2020, this is when we're going to go for it.
Yeah, imagine a government that didn't change hands by popular election potentially every 4 years. And it was like, hey, I get to run what I want to for the next 15 to 20 years. Okay? The perspective I would really like to know is like from our parents in the previous generation. Was this always something they worried about too? Was there always that static? Granted, we have better access to
Probably.
Cuban Missile Crisis,
better access to
like
news.
Cold
like
War.
Right, we have more real time transparency with a lot of our news. But were they? pumped up on edge to some degree. You know, like our generation is all the time, and it's
Well,
just
yeah,
new to
I mean,
us, but it's not new to anyone
They were
else.
shipped off to Vietnam.
Do you,
No,
do you,
I
do
mean,
you
our
remember
generation
the?
was shipped off to Iraq.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well,
What,
Vietnam was 70s.
200 people died in Iraq. Americans.
What?
Something like that. Something
Like-
crazy.
No.
It was low.
No. Like the first little bit of that after.
Well, I don't know. It was 200. What my point is it was American soldier casualties was extremely low compared to Vietnam.
Oh, compared to Vietnam, yes.
Yes,
I'm
that's
saying,
what-
but there was
that's what I'm
tens
saying.
of thousands of people died in Iraq, right?
But we
pretty
weren't
soon.
drafted to go
This
to
is,
Viet
this is
to
a
No.
great
to
example of our transparency. I mean, we can just Google it.
yeah, we can just
Tony.
know. But my point is we weren't drafted to have to go to Iraq, where Vietnam you were drafted. You're like you're going.
You guys both listened probably to that Peter Zehan on Rogan.
Yeah,
Remember,
yes,
like he made
I've
some
heard of him.
comment about China. Like he was saying, like China's if they don't do something, like they're already going to be like nothing in 10 years. He goes,
Yes,
the death
yeah.
of China is 10 years away.
That guy was interesting because he was so as a matter of fact about this
Yeah.
stuff. He was almost arrogant.
Yeah, I know. I was a little turned away by that, but
Not that what he was saying wasn't interesting. It was, but it almost made it almost his. I don't know. His laissez-faire attitude just made it seem like it wasn't believable as some other people that I've heard speak on topics.
That's a good one.
But you're right. He did say that they're like super vulnerable right now, and their measure of action might have to be something drastic to change that.
I'm looking at this website. It's military.com.
Let's say percentage-wise, it looks like, Todd, you're fairly close. So it says, I just lost it. As far as casualties, I want to say it said 60,000 U.S. were lost in Vietnam. Yep, nearly 60,000 Americans were killed in Vietnam and about 3,000 in Afghanistan. So this is just Afghanistan. This is post all the
Desert Storm was the war
Desert
in
Storm
Iraq,
stuff
right?
like that, right? But the fallout is considerably different, right? The impact of the war. But as far as deaths, yeah, I mean, it was pennies on the dollar, so to speak.
U.S. and Allied forces let's see here you go. This Operation Desert Storm. This is what we're talking about, right?
No.
I would
No.
We were talking about Iraq and Afghanistan after 2001.
Okay.
Desert Storm was
I
90s.
would agree with Nick that like
Okay.
post
I was talking. I was thinking Desert Storm.
post 2001, like that
Okay.
whole
Desert
You're,
Storm was a
talking, you're
joke.
talking about 01.
yeah.
You're talking about after 9/11.
Desert Storm
yeah,
was
yes.
383 Americans.
Yes, that's what I. That's yes.
But that war was different than
Correct.
like what after the terrorism stuff. Like
Well,
we were
that's-
there for oil, basically it. Like the whole like Kuwait.
Yeah, but
and-
that I get it. But it was still way less and still different. But so to say, were they on edge? I would say, yeah. I mean, their buddies were.
Well, sure.
One day we're sitting next to them at the bar, and the next day they were friggin' heading to boot camp.
Plus, you're
on a
talking about
boat
parents who
the jungle.
witnessed atomic and hydrogen bombs being used. You know what I mean? Like their
that was
parents saw
wild.
some shit. You know, it's like
Well,
we
and
just,
think about that.
we just disappeared hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, we talked about what the military, what are they doing,
Man,
right? And Nick, you
gross.
mentioned like, hey, that's kind of crazy. You would just wonder. Well, you think about like the Manhattan Project. I mean, that was all like going on.
Yeah.
And
Under the idea of like we have to do this to secure us, otherwise we're in danger.
mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, yeah, let's do this.
Mhm.
Let's absolutely starch not just a city,
Then
not just a county, but
can you
basically like
imagine
a
if-
state.
Can you imagine
Over here.
if the test of that, the guy who did that at the University of Chicago, if that went the other way, could have blown up the whole city.
Ooh, oh, we would look like
Whoops!
such clowns.
Whoops!
What's going on over in America? Don't worry.
Don't
They're
worry.
gonna erase themselves
Don't worry.
in no time.
we're moving the border of Illinois below that, and above it is Canada now.
We're gonna give Michigan to Canada. You guys want it? It's a barren wasteland.
Yeah, but you just wonder.
Oh,
you wonder what they're doing.
Speaking of our great
there's stuff
state
that's
being
going on.
shortchanged, I saw a study come out and it was preparedness for a zombie apocalypse. And you know we were in the bottom 5? I was like, by what means? We're surrounded by the greatest collection of fresh water.
I was just gonna say they can't swim.
Basically, we give the UP away.
We get on boats.
We sever the Mackinac Bridge, and we got to deal with Indiana and Ohio. We can walk them dry 9 days a week, man. I mean, we are exponentially smarter than Indiana.
Who cares?
And Ohio
We
people.
just go on a boat.
But we got one
No
border.
zombies
Everyone
coming.
else has 5-6 borders to deal with.
Either that or
Not
we're
us.
boxed in. That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as we patrol that
Yeah.
southern border, wink. Common problem. We got it under control. We build a
true.
wall.
It's true. We blow up the bridge.
Start digging a moat
Yep.
across our
Yeah,
southern
that's right.
territory.
Michigan, Lake Erie.
Problem
Let's
solved.
connect them.
Problem solved, right? We shut down the Sulaks. We
Ooh,
got
that's
our
not a
border
bad
secured.
idea.
Right.
What-
Texas is talking about being independent. I
Let's
think we
start
got the best geographic remoteness
let's
to
start-
become independent.
Let's start the Michigan to Erie Canal.
Yeah, that happened. You know how that resolved? It was 12 out of 14 agents were FBI people, and 2 people were militia people that tried to kidnap the governor.
Yeah, we don't have the demographic to be independent
We don't.
in Michigan. No.
We should. I mean, be like, hey, look at this.
What do you mean?
What
We're
if,
here.
what if we sold it as you can ride your snowmobiles all year round, you can fish, no license, you can hunt deer, no license, people be like, sign me up. And guess what? To boot, we're not going to kick any money into the government, so we're going to fix all the roads.
That'd be sweet.
Everyone's like, you'd sign my ass up. You're talking about we have all the
Way
craft
too-
brew
way-
that we want?
We'd be way too populated.
Man,
People
this
be
would
here.
So dope. This state would increase. It would increase to, what do we got, 10, 15 million people in the state
Plus
right now?
we'd be like,
It's 10.
listen, with this canal that we're gonna divide us with,
Bro.
here we go. In about, with global warming, we're gonna be Florida in about 15 years. Let's go. Let's go.
What
I
were-
just
what do
I
you-
just don't see how we can lose as a state. We are the best state in the entire confederation here, guys.
I wanted to ask you a follow up about the Putin and
Sure. I think
G-
this is super scary
the
because you
Putin
got
and G
people
thing.
that
I'm
are
just
like,
curious about like what Xi was like when he was saying that and they were talking. Like, what do you think Putin meant when he said something's going to happen that hasn't happened in 100 years?
what I think?
Just anything. I mean, I'm like, what happened 100 years ago or whatever?
It was more of a statement than it was like to draw a conclusion, I think, with their post. Because those were words that were actually said. I mean,
Yeah.
that is a quote from them two shaking hands while Xi Jinping was like,
So
hey,
what do
thanks
we
for
think they
fucking up.
mean by that?
Well, I'm thinking like we're in kind of a little bit of an economic crisis, right? And are they like kind of laughing about the fact that like we're going to put America through another Great Depression, like 1929 or something? You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
are
you
they going
know-
to hold
you know-
out on it?
You know how that got resolved, right? We went over and bombed every manufacturing facility in the net, like in our competing neighbors.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe they're thinking,
And then we won.
but
Guess
maybe
what? That's why Volkswagens aren't driving all around the roads and Chevy is.
they're going to watch us
Because
going downhill, and then they're going to come over and attack while we're in. They're going to attack first versus letting us get over there to do that.
They could. But the problem that they have not wrapped their minds around is the common citizen has more guns than any of their military does here. So it comes down to it, and look, we love to hate each other.
So why do they want to take our guns?
That's a great question.
Biden's on Xi's team.
I think it's still one of the greatest things that unites this country is the fact that, wait a minute, if we can wade through all the bullshit and narratives that are forced on us, we can still realize we're all the same people, and I have access to and every right to be able to defend myself, not just against somebody else that I don't know, but the person that sits right next to me every day. There's an intimidation factor and some level of respect that you have to have because you don't know. This person has access to everything you have, so why wouldn't this person have everything you have? So if you're going to bring a gun to a knife fight, why do you think you're walking into a knife fight, right? So the resiliency, I think, what really started this country of us being like, you know what, fuck you guys. we're going to hop on this boat and go over to this other place that nobody really knows what's over there. And we'll figure it out our own. I mean, that's kind of what makes us all great over here, I think. Right? I mean, everybody deep down, whether they're lazy and don't give a shit or they're super ambitious, there's just some spark in all of us Americans that says, I'll figure it out. I'll get there. Mm-hmm. I'll connect A with B. It might not be pretty. It might not be what I thought it was going to be. It might not be comfortable or lavish. But where there's a will, there's a way. And we've always been filled with will. Right? So if you want to come over here and you want to try to pull some shenanigans with us, one, Canada's not going to be a problem for us. And Canada is sparsely populated. There's a lot of land mass up there. So, I mean, you can pull some tomfoolery around up there if you want, but by the time you get to our, America's northern border, you're going to have your hands full. Even if you go into, Montana, Idaho, the plain states that are sparsely populated, you're going to have a problem. You're going to see everyone come together fairly quickly and be like, do you have any more of them guns? Y'all got any more of them guns? Right? That's what everyone's going to show up for that. You're going to have Tyrone Bigums all over the place trying to find guns. Mexico, I don't know about Mexico. Who knows? I still think that it would be, there's a conversation to be had that we take over Mexico and we take the southern border all the way to Panama.
That's
and
perfect.
Then we have like about 15 miles that we need to patrol down there. We let them have whatever they want. Run it however you want. You kick up taxes to us. You're under our control now. Do whatever. Right? I still think that's the way to go.
What happens with the drug game then?
Oh, they'll all have to go even south of that Panama.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll be in South America then.
They'll just push them down.
They'll be in the whatever, because when you get to that level, I mean, you basically like are cutting off like Central America to South America, right? So they'd have to all go back. Most of those are coming from El Salvador.
Todd, you just give them a couple, cannabis dispensaries down there. You regulate it and tax it, and everyone realizes, okay, we got to go south to make this money like we were, and then they go south, or they're like, hey.
Americans love Mexico. Mexicans love America.
We
we should be a team.
I'm just saying.
I think so.
I'm just saying.
I agree. I was just telling you the other day how many times I've been down there.
We double our tax paying population. They get to hate taxes as much as we do, but they get to enjoy.
It's a big undertaking, though, right?
It would be, yeah, for sure. I
mean,
mean,
it's
it's not
different
like
culture. You get different. There's all sorts of differences.
It's not going to be like the Louisiana Purchase for $1 million. You know what I mean? It's going to be a little more complex, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
plus you're not just taking. I mean, that would be a hell of a negotiation by somebody to have a peaceful, like, all right, welcome to the United States. Then Puerto Rico's over here going, what the hell happened to us? We're just territory.
Yeah, you guys get to pay taxes but not vote.
So are you saying? Yeah, right. So are we saying that it's like a territory, like a Puerto Rico, or are you
US
saying
Virgin
it's a
Islands?
state?
No, like they break it up and they add like they do like like the expansion. Like for like the NFL teams, right? You say like, hey, how many states do you want to have? And you maybe make 6 to 10
there would be that
states.
There would be that awkward conversation between New Mexico and New Mexico.
They already
like, we're
old
original,
Mexico.
We're original Mexico. Be like, no, we're New Mexico. No, you're not. We want Mexico back.
You're not even Mexico. You're America South.
You're New Arizona.
But they already have like when you're like in like Puerto Vallarta or whatever. I remember seeing like all over the place like Jalisco or whatever it is. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that was like either like the county or whatever section. You know what I mean? So I think Mexico's broken up into sections.
I say it stays the same way. You know what? You can govern it the same way. Do whatever you want down there, but it takes our national interest and pushes it, 3,000 miles to the south to a border that's much more patrollable.
I'd move there in a second.
Speaking of Mexico, did you guys listen to Luke Combs on Rogan or no?
I haven't got to that one yet.
Dude, this guy is awesome. Luke Combs is great.
I'll have to check it out. Is that another new one?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Definitely.
I need to get Spotify back. Angie, when she had it,
yeah, definily. So I'm gonna just tell you a brief. I mean, it's a 2.5, 3 hour, like most of his stuff. So this doesn't spoil anything, but I'm gonna give you this Mexico story from Luke Combs because this is freaking amazing. And when you hear him tell it, it'll be way better than me telling it. But he's like, look, I've been to Mexico once. He's talking to Joe Rogan. And he's this big dude, right? And I'm watching on video, and he's got this deep kind of voice like this. He's just, oh, dude. He's like, dude, I took my buddies. I was down there. So he goes down to Cabo. He gets this trip through Colombia because he has a a sponsorship through Columbia. So he's like, I'm gonna bring my buddies. He's like, they just wanted to do like a photo shoot and some video and stuff like that. So they flew us down there. We get off the plane. All we had to do is wear some Columbia gear, and there's some execs there, like PFG execs and whatever, hanging out, whatever. And he's like, we get into Cabo, and we get off the plane. We get on this Sprinter van, and we just start driving. And he's like, it's me, my two buddies, or my three buddies, my manager, and the driver. And they take us to our spot, and then the Columbia guys are in another spot. And we're thinking we're like, all right, Cabo. And he's like, man, we get in this vehicle, and we're like 40 minutes later, he's like, I feel like Cabo is far away. He's like, where are we at? Oh boy. He's like, where with
your hands.
He's like, where are we? You know, and so he's describing this drive away, and he's like, they bring us to this house. He's like, it's literally on the beach, but it's in this remote area. And he goes, so we get dropped off, and we're thinking, the Columbia guys are just at a hotel, like near the airport. So they're going to come here and take pictures of us, like take us on a boat, whatever, fishing, this, that, whatever. So they're hanging out, and they're cooking, and he's like, we're on the beach, and we're smoking a J-Bone, and we're just hanging out. And he's like, all of a sudden, he's like, we're in this remote area. It's dark, and it's kind of like, what the hell? This is kind of weird. He's like, we see this one just headlight like coming down the beach. He's like, what the heck? And they're like just sitting there, and then so they stay out there. This like 60-year-old couple walking down the beach that retired to this little town, but they're like thinking, what the heck is going on? So then these people are like, yeah, they're talking to him. They're just shooting the shit. They don't have no idea who he is. And they're like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Well, come back to our place. We'll have some tequila and this and that. And he's like, his buddy's like, no. And Luke Combs goes, oh, we're going. He's like, we're on one. We're going with these old people. So they walk down the beach. They go to this place. They're hanging out with these 60-year-olds. You know, Luke Combs is 33. This is like a couple years ago or last year or something. And he's like, we're drinking tequila heavy. He's like, we're just having a good time, whatever, hanging out with these people, smoking a doobie, this, that, the other thing. And finally, it's time to go. And he's like, it's freaking, we're in this town we don't know where we are, you know, and it's kind of like, Mexico's a little wild right now. We're not really in Cabo, you know. And he's like, we got to walk back. And he's like, we're stumbling, figuring out our way back. He's like, we start walking back. And he's like, we start walking down the street. And he goes, we hear this bell. And we're like a bell ringing. He's like, what in the world is this? And he's like, he goes, the biggest two steers you've ever seen. These bulls just walk out into the street. And he's like, what the hell?
Too drunk.
He's like, we're hiding behind garbage cans or something. Like, what is going on? Then they get by that and they walk back. They finally find their way back to the house. It's like, we gotta figure this out. They get back to the house, and they're like trying to be all quiet. And they like try to open the slider door on the beach house, and they open it. He didn't realize his manager is like sleeping outside because of him and only this one other guy went. And the guy wakes up. He's like, what the fuck? What's going on? Holy shit. And he's like, dude, you got to make us some food. He's like, to that guy's my manager's credit, he got up, made us this like shrimp egg stir fry thing. It was fantastic. He goes, so that's Mexico to me. It's freaking hilarious. So funny. I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, and while he was there, he's telling his buddy, is like, look, they're asking what kind of music they're listening to, and this guy's like, oh yeah, you know, yeah, we kind of like country, but these new country singers, they don't, he's like, they don't do it like the old ones, whatever. And he's like, whatever, you know, yeah, okay, sure. So and he have no idea who he is, but his buddy's like, we have to tell them who you are. And he's like, nah, you know, he's kind of humble. He's like, we don't need to do that. But the guy's like, listen, we have to tell them. Imagine if you were them and George Strait walked up to you,
Right.
and you didn't know it was them. Their grandkids probably listen to your music, dude. You're pretty big. So they end up telling them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's cool."
Cool.
Like, I didn't really
Cool
care,
story,
bro.
bro.
They're like, "Hey, watch out for the steers on your way back." Yeah. So anyway, it's good. It's good stuff. He's a super interesting guy, but that story was hilarious. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, honestly, what I think happens is, at the end of the day, Russia and China team up together, and they're like, okay, we're gonna dethrone America. And right now, Mexico's like, that seems like a good idea. You have like another, some firepower over here. But then they're gonna find out they don't give a shit about Mexico, and then Mexico's big. Okay, we're sorry, America. We're gonna be like, all right, screw it. We need some help fighting these guys. That's gonna be back to us fighting.
Well,
them.
plus I feel like we're moving a lot of plants to Mexico.
Yeah.
And a lot of manufacturing is moving there
It
from
wasn't-
America.
It wasn't that long ago. I think it was last year. Like Biden was totally touting the like agreements that we're pushing with Mexico to get away from our dependency on China. Why don't we do it with Mexico? It makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're our neighbors, right? They live on the same big piece of rock that we do.
Well, you feel like if that's happening, then maybe, like Nick, what you're talking about is more possible.
Imagine
if we already have that big of an influence, it's like, hey, why don't we if we can make this work, why can't we make other things work? And
well, like you said,
still
if it's all the big rock, then I mean Canada's on board too, because no one wants anything happening on North America, right? So like we're all a team in that sense.
Imagine that. Imagine we get in this big pissing contest of like continents. Right.
I just think that like
man, that'd be bad news. Man, it's just because you got a lot of people with a lot of artillery on either side.
Africa's out here going,
we're
our
just stuck in the middle
our spears
here.
are not gonna work here.
I feel like America and all the
They're
wars.
like, we're gonna go hang out with Australia while you guys figure this shit out.
That's right.
It doesn't make sense though that like we let things like if any part of that stuff is true, like and we're not gonna be the first to act. You know what I mean? Like, why do we sit around and wait for a 9/11 or a Pearl Harbor or, you know what I mean? Like, why would we sit back and wait? If, like, these threats are credible and they're talking about teaming up, I just thought the whole Ukraine-Russia thing, like, from the get-go, they just talked about how bad Ukraine is holding on and they're, you know what I mean? Are they really? I mean, Russia, by what the media would tell you, has been just destroyed and demolished, right? Like, their military is in the gutter.
Who's that?
All the media says that, like, Ukraine's held up well enough, way farther than they ever should have.
Sure.
And they've gotten to the point where they've like had massive catastrophe against Russian forces where Russia's lost a ton, their sentiment. And I'm saying this is just what the media says. So I'm just like, I don't know if I buy it. I mean, I don't know like at some point why Putin wouldn't like throw in the towel or back off if he truly is losing so many people. Because if they're planning on a bigger war, I don't think you want to be this devastated. And so like the media is telling us that they're devastated, yet he still seems confident to be talking to Xi like they got something going on.
So when we look at this might be
his meal ticket.
This might be a conversation to be had, but like when we look at America, we feel like there's a level of population across the entire country. I mean, granted, you've got some plain states that are kind of sparsely populated. You've got some places that are considerably denser than others, but for 350 million people, you think, okay, there's a lot of people living in this area. Russia's not that way. Russia's more like how Canada's populated. There's a huge area that has nobody living in it. So yeah, you look at Russia and you're like, man, it's the biggest country, right, on the planet. China's right there with it. But I want to say per like square meter, like Russia is like the biggest country on the planet.
Could be.
China's the most populated. So when you think of like, man, Russia should be just wiping the map with whoever they want to.
Their population's not big enough though.
Right. They're not. Yeah, they have a huge... They're just a neighbor with a big yard.
And obviously, the badass Russians, the way the media tell you, are now Ukrainians.
Right. Plus,
because they're kicking ass.
I mean, you have, you have neighboring countries to Russia that have been burnt by that area before. And they understand what war by somebody driving across two other countries looks like. Like, we don't understand that. We've always been we're going to go over there. We're we're going to keep the fight from here, but we're going to go over there and deal with it.
Here's what's crazy. So largest by landmass by area, Russia. This is in square kilometers. 17 million square kilometers is Russia. You know what the second largest country is?
Country?
Russia,
Yeah,
Probably
country.
Canada.
Well, Russia too.
India, Canada.
Canada, 9.984 million square kilometers. Then China, 9.7. Then the United States, almost 9.4.
Get Australia.
What's
Australia's
the landmass per
7.7.
capita?
What's that?
What's the landmass per capita?
Right. So
The crazy thing about the United States though is like if you ever looked at a map, I forget what the map I was looking at, but it kind of was like lit up the night sky type of thing. Like it's not too far out in space or whatever it is, but it was like you see that west of the Mississippi River, it's actually more like farther in. It's like I-35 that goes from Minneapolis to like in through Kansas City down to Dallas. West of I-35 that goes that way, it's nothing.
Well,
I mean,
until you hit the western seaboard, right?
Yeah, definitely the coastline is packed again. But I'm saying in between there you have Nebraska, Kansas, like much of Colorado, like New Mexico, Arizona has some big cities and stuff. It kind of starts picking up right there, but the upper Northwest until you get to Seattle and stuff, it's dead, like nothing, no lights.
It's crazy that our country has 2 mountain ranges on either side. And granted, the Appalachians, as opposed to the Rockies, are like this.
Yeah,
but the majority of our country is on either side of the mountain ranges, and then you have this bowl of just like what everyone calls flyover states, but we call home. Right?
Yeah,
this is like the
for
cool
sure.
chill area.
For sure. All right, so the densest population, which is basically what you asked.
India's got to be up there. 'Cause
Is,
they're in the billions.
So right now it's Monaco, 25,000 residents per square kilometer.
Oh, and Monaco, that's a
Yep. Singapore is next. This doesn't have a list. Well, here we go. Monaco. Then Monaco something else. Singapore. So these are Hong Kong, SAR. I don't know what that is. Gibraltar. These are cities. This isn't countries.
I gotta say, I would want to say like Vatican City is up there too, because they're like their own country, right?
Countries by density. Here we go. This might be a better list. Let's see here.
Harness that infinite Google power.
Yeah, Monaco, Singapore, Bahrain, Maldives, Malta, Bangladesh.
The problem is
Bangladesh a city?
You need a it's
Thailand?
It's a country.
Bangladesh, isn't that a city?
I think it's a country, isn't it? It's like India though. It's in India.
Bangladesh is
Vatican City,
right?
Barbados, Lebanon.
Right. Barbados isn't a country.
It is. It's an island.
I said is a country.
Oh, it is a country, yes. But Bangladesh, isn't that?
We have a couple sponsored children in Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. What am I thinking?
Bangkok,
Thailand. Bangladesh is probably a country. And then Mauritius.
The thing is by looking in this
another island. So that's densest.
There's too many small ones. This doesn't make any sense because you know what I mean?
Correct.
The small ones in the per capita don't work because like what's interesting is look at the population. So countries, right? China.
You're just doing population.
Well, yeah,
yes,
because look at how fast this falls off. We have right now 8. It changed just as I'm watching it. We have 8,020,650,000 people on Earth now, right?
8 billion.
Yeah. So, but China has 1.4 billion. India has almost 1.4, and then we're next with 334 million. So both of those
are
India and China are
almost
both
5 times bigger.
Nah,
almost
more like 4 times more because we're about 3.5 and they're only at 14 or 1.4.
But if you take those you get over 3 billion, which is like 40% plus us.
Well, ours times 4 would be.
Well, I'm just saying those 3 countries combined, compared to the rest of the world, that is like 40% plus of the population of the world.
Yeah, you know what's so funny? You said Bangladesh or whatever, though, has 169 million. It's like in the top 10.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking Bangkok.
But Russia only has 146 million. So we're more than double their population, and yet they have the most land mass. Mexico's only 128 million. You got Japan. They'd be on our side for.
And isn't Mexico City? Well, at one point, it was the most populous city.
Yeah, I think it was
in the
there.
world.
Was it?
Yeah.
No.
Yes. It's it might not be now, but I think when we were growing up, it was had the most people.
But so then Ukraine, 41 million.
What number is that? Oh,
It's down there.
Number, but it's down.
They do. It's 36th.
Wow.
With 41 million. But you get down to like 50 is like the Ivory Coast with 29 million. That's like even Australia. Imagine how big that is. They only have 26 million people.
Yeah, and everybody. Well, and it's funny because Australia is a big rock that just crowns like in the middle, right? So everybody's on the beach.
United States is 178 on this list.
For what? For population?
Population density.
Oh, density.
Right. So what I'm saying is
That
like
makes some sense.
per how big the country is, how many people live on it.
Yeah.
Right. So I would love to see this visually on how it's represented. Right. So you take.
Those little ones skew the shit out.
You would take like our big country, you would shrink it down. You would take like, macaw and like blow it up. It'd be the biggest one.
Macaw.
Macaw.
I think that's a bird.
So like for every okay, you're gonna give us 10%. Well, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't have the weight that I'm thinking it does, but I guess ultimately what I'm getting at is if you were looking at like, okay, just this area is gonna fight this fight. I didn't see where Russia was at though. Canada's 223. Oh, Russia's 218.
Yeah,
Russia would be. They'd be at the bottom.
Down.
They only have 144 million people living in their country. We got them 2-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't want any of this smoke.
But China's got us dominated though, and they only had a lot of boys for a long time, right?
Oh yeah.
Look at Chad's got his own country, and he's 213.
Chad's got
Those are rookie numbers.
Hey, don't forget that we have the U.S. Virgin Islands. That's 87,000 people to back us up to.
And Puerto Rico.
Batuan, Papua New Guinea.
That's the thing. You have like NATO and all that stuff too, right? So it's like, I just don't see. It doesn't make sense.
Dr. Congo.
If Russia's getting destroyed by Ukraine, right, or at least if they're even, right, what would make them think that they could even come close? Like they would need China's help, but I don't think China would want to burn the bridge with us since we consume everything from them.
Even from here, if we wanted to take over Ukraine, it'd be done by now.
You ever think maybe though this
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
we would never want to do that.
No.
But what I'm just saying, to your point, this is still going on.
Consider this in the 4D chess, right? What if Xi's out there just prancing around, but him and Trump started something a long time ago, Biden's finishing it off, we're in cahoots to basically end Russia. And Xi's just playing the side like, I'm kind of on your side, but
I'll be your friend. As long as
he's letting him think he's the only ally, and in the end we end up basically removing Putin.
So but check this out. China has about 15 to 20% of all people on this planet are in their country.
Well, that's what I was saying. China,
They're a billion
India,
and a half people strong.
Yeah,
that
so is India.
4 times more than the people we have.
Yeah.
So is India, by the way.
But again, look at where those people are though.
They're at 1.4 billion.
Their poverty also is pretty bad, and a lot of those people are out in the mountains, like talk about living off the grid. They're out farming and doing all kinds of crazy stuff there.
Yeah, but if their system, like as much as we hate their system, if their system didn't work, would they have 1.4 billion people in their country?
Who knows?
You know what I mean? Like it works for them. We hate it because we love how we live.
Yeah, do the people there love it though?
I bet they don't, but who knows?
I think countries have
maybe they do.
their their
they don't know any different.
No, but you have your loyalty, and you have like that roots, and you have that feel like you want to be a part of something, right? So I think there's probably a lot of pride in that.
Sure, but not one time have I ever gone over to China
right.
and been like, "How you doing today? You like this shit?" And not one time have I ever been able to ask that question to someone over there. Maybe they're like, "Yeah, whatever." I'm gonna get back to doing what I was doing. What the fuck are you doing over here?
I thought
You know what I mean? They're like,
I
why?
thought you were talking about you've been there, and you were like, I can't ask that question.
I tried.
I'm
I
like-
was like, hey. They're like, piss off. I need to ask you. I got shit to do.
Oh man,
Anyway, I gotta wrap it up.
yeah,
It's 10:15.
that's big world problems, man.
I gotta look up one more thing real quick.
We got time. Let's do this.
And this is just to be
I
interesting
like the
to think
move to
about.
tequila though.
I don't know. I mean,
We need a margarita machine down here. It'd be dangerous. Margaritas with those tiny
already-
Corona
Hey,
bottles.
we already
Make it.
look
Yeah,
at
you have
how
to add
full that
tequila
fridge
and
is.
just have the margarita machine making like just the nice slushy mix, so I can have my virgin.
Sure.
ones.
Yeah, we
Heck
can
yeah,
add. We
dude.
can add afterwards.
In
we
fact,
gotta-
you know what? We can even do it, and we can probably find like a little like non-alcoholic, those mini. We could do the whole Corona thing, and then you can be
yep.
even pouring the beer in it.
Corona does
it's
make.
not-
I want to
it'd
say
be
Corona makes
non-alcoholic.
an NA beer. They got to.
Yeah,
They're missing out on a market if they don't. But
yeah. Most companies
get
do.
an NA Corona, dump it in there. Oh, be like a tiki hut down here. It's the way to go, dude. I've renewed my love
Dude,
for
we wa-
tequila.
We walked into Sonny's. I think they were like, "What the heck?"
You made a good point. It's like, I don't think they know that we know each other. They've never seen us in the same spot at the same time.
Dude, when we pulled in, they were probably like, "Oh,
They're-
this place might
It
blow
was
up."
probably like the Players Club. They like hit the red button behind the behind the counter. There's money coming in.
You'll
let's
like
go.
this. So we go in and we see Sonny. Tony walks in. He's like, "Hey!" They're like, "Oh, New York money, super cop,
So
Tony."
They're like, and Tony. Everyone else has a cool nickname.
But then
You
he
have
goes-
a cool nickname. Hal has a cool nickname. I'm just Tony.
Yeah, we walk in and he goes, "Oh, you guys are recording the music," and I go, "Oh no, there's not." I go, "There's not enough booze in this building to make us sound good."
What did he say? He's like, you guys like Bob and Tom.
Bob and Tom.
Oh, speaking of which, in that whole genre, so Dave Ramsey, like, I'm not gonna get into how I feel about Dave Ramsey. I don't want to know how you
Don't
guys
go
feel
down
about
too deep
Dave
of a
Ramsey-
rabbit hole
Dave
here because
Ramsey.
Nick has had one last thing to bring up.
But I saw this thing that came up. So Dave Ramsey was backing this like anti-timeshare, like how to get out of timeshares. Come to find out, the anti-timeshare racket is just as bad as the timeshare racket. And there was a quote from him where he was refuting some Inside Edition like hit piece that came out against him, and he's like, well, guess what? Guess who's still on the air? I am. Guess who's still in a building, a $300 million paid for building? I am. Guess who's still neck deep in cash? I am. It's like, so you're not really a spokesperson for the working person anymore, are you? It's like, man.
he's done well.
He's not an idiot. There's no doubt about that. What were you gonna say, Nick?
I just find it
I'm
ironic
intrigued.
that the champion for like the person of you can do it is like, are we done talking? Okay, I'm gonna go get on my boat.
I can't. I'm not gonna blow your mind with anything. It was a curiosity because I was thinking we were talking about China having the most, right? Almost 1.5 billion people, and I was just curious, how many Chinese people are in America? You know, of our 334 million, like how many millions of Chinese people live here? And it's like they say by 2025 it'll be like over 5 million. So I'm just like, dang. Like, I'm not saying dang that they're here. I'm just saying it's a lot of people. 5 million's a lot more than a lot of countries.
yeah.
Sure.
And there's 5 million here, and there's, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking almost 2% of our population, right?
no,
You're talking the person who doesn't know how to tip.
yeah, no,
When it comes
yeah,
to that thing.
you're 5 million out of 335 million is more of like a 0.5%, wouldn't it be?
0.2%.
5,
Just
1,
move a
2, 3,
decimal
4,
point
5,
around.
6 divided by 3, 35.
It's like 0.6.
Watch this. This is me doing math.
1.5,
Shoot.
1.5%.
That's what I said, 2%.
Yeah.
So I was right the first time.
1.5% is not. When you go to 2, you've like taken it a lot more.
Yeah.
If you just said like 1.6,
about
I'd give you
0.5.
1.5 or
About
whatever.
0.5. About 0.5.
Yeah.
About 0.5%.
2% just didn't make sense.
About 0.5%.
I'll give it to you. That was pretty close. I mean, you weren't way off.
Appreciate you.
You weren't bad tipping off.
Thanks for the concession.
Wait a minute though.
I mean,
Yeah, you were bad off. That's 50%.
I was just gonna say that's
No.
It's like 40%
No.
off. Just saying.
Yeah, it would be 25% off. Is it
It's
25?
It's actually 33% off. So
We were
ain't
talking
close.
percentages and off. I think of like walking around New Orleans, be like, you look like half price Dave Portnoy.
Oh, dude, I said that to somebody the other day. God, who did I? Oh, we were at we were at one of those Warriors games, and I was like, oh, we got half price Klay Thompson over here. He didn't suit up, so now he's up here enjoying a beer. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't.
Calling people like doppelgangers, like quasi doppelgangers, half price versions of the actual person.
Yeah,
there is
50. Oh, there's
fun.
50% off. Somebody. Yeah.
There's Dollar.
who was
there's
it?
Dollar General Joe Biden. That'd be a 50%er.
You get this little wheeze in your laughing.
Sometimes I do.
All right.
All right,
Just
boys.
gotta breathe
I think
heavy.
it's good.
It's been good. Another successful. Well, hopefully
We'll
successful.
see.
Who knows? We'll see if this one
If
comes out or
not,
not.
hey, if not,
I
it was
got
fun.
I got an email
That's
from
right.
Spotify for podcasters that said, "We miss your voice." I'm like, "Fuck off! I didn't get it. Why is everyone piling on me? I fucked up."
That's
Right.
good shit right there. That's awesome. We were like, who else? I don't think we were too
Right?
mad at
Yeah.
you.
Who else wants to lose?
Even our program
log one
that,
into
Hey.
me here?
that
Hey.
pushes it out.
I'm not even going to tell you how sad. I didn't even have the heart to tell my mom who fucked it up. So she's like, where's this podcast?
Right.
I'm kidding. She hasn't even mentioned it. So
Be
she
like-
must have gave up on us.
Tell her it's the Helen Keller version. You can't hear it.
We're like, what? You
Insert your
can't
own
hear it?
words here.
Something's wrong with your phone.
It
Hey,
could be. Be like,
hey,
hey, that's what we
hey.
should. We talked about this. We just posted and be like, I don't know. It's
What
something wrong with your
about somebody we know's deaf, good at reading lips? Maybe she could just translate it for
Wow.
us.
transcribe the whole
That would be
thing.
interesting. All right.
Anyway,
I might have an inside track for preferential treatment on what I was gonna say.
exactly. All right, fellas.
All right.
See ya.
Later.